Action will be taken on the following items at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, November 26, 2024, in council chambers, Sparta Township Municipal Building, 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey. The time is 7:19. The regular meeting is now open. All council meetings are now live streamed and can be viewed at the following link: www.youtube.com/SpartaTWP/streams. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided to the public and the press on January 5th, 2024, by delivering to the press and posting on the township website a copy of the notice. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Councilwoman Quinn.
Here.
Councilman Chiarello.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Blumetti.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here.
I want to clarify for the record as well. Councilman Hertzberg is traveling for the Thanksgiving holiday. Normally, we have the meeting in the beginning of the month, not the end of the month. So these travel plans were in place already.
We don't need to do, we don't need to do this resolution, just to salute to the flag, because we already did it. Thank
Salute
you.
to the flag.
All right, may we stand and salute the flag, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move on, the township lost an amazing asset last week. Julie Figarelli passed away. She was a member of our Sparta Township family for quite some time. And I think that it would only be appropriate for us to take a minute of silence in her honor.
Okay, may we have a motion of silence, please, for... Okay, thank you. And thank you for her contributions to our community. And thank you for raising that, Councilwoman Quinn. Next up, we have some minutes that we need to approve. May I have a motion to approve the September 10th, 2024 regular meeting minutes as presented? I will point out that Councilman Chiarello or Councilman Hertzberg were not at those meetings, so they should abstain from voting.
I make a motion we approve the regular meeting minutes for September 10th, 2024.
I second the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The September 10th, 2024 regular meeting minutes as
And
presented.
I have abstained, as we said.
And one abstention. So the regular meeting minutes for September 10th, 2024 have been approved. May I have a motion to approve the September 24th, 2024 regular meeting minutes as presented?
I move that we approve the September 24, 2024 meeting minutes as presented.
And I will second it. And I will note that Deputy Mayor Blumetti was not at that meeting, so he should abstain. So all those in favor say aye.
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 So 3 ayes, 1 abstention.
Abstain.
All right, the regular meeting minutes for September 24th, 2024 have been approved. Now we are up to the manager's report. Manager Jim Zepp.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Sparta residents. The Sparta Fire Department Ladies Auxiliary has generously donated $5,000 to the fire department. This donation will be used to purchase 2 new rescue saws and 3 new combustible gas detectors. The saws are essential for various rescue operations and will be placed on the new pumper apparatus expected to arrive before the end of the year. The gas detectors are a new addition to the department's equipment inventory, enhancing safety due to the increased presence of natural gas in the township. The Ladies Auxiliary, which has been supporting the fire department for 101 years, consists mainly of firefighters' family members. Their mission includes providing funding, equipment inventory, refreshments at emergency scenes, and general community service. They currently have 11 members and are open to new members from the Sparta community, regardless of their affiliation with the fire department. Thank you to the Sparta Ladies Auxiliary. I would like to thank Christine Smith and Mike Barslowski of the Public Works Department. they were able to squeeze in an additional online auction to liquidate 5 motor vehicles the township no longer has use for. The auction netted $11,651 to be used in next year's budget. This past Friday, the township experienced its first winter weather event for the season. Sparta schools closed and the township received 4.2 inches of snow in most parts of the town, with more reported in the higher elevations. Gratitude and appreciation goes out to our Public Works and Parks departments for keeping our roads, parking lots, and walkways safe. Our Recreation and Parks staff are busy with the upcoming holiday events. Please contact the Recreation Department or visit our website under the Recreation brochure for more information on the following events. Starting December 1st, Sparta children can mail letters to Santa as well as request a phone call from Santa. The annual December Holiday Home Decorating Contest. Register by December 6th, and judging will begin the week of December 9th. The annual Christmas tree lighting and visit with Santa, Friday, December 6th at Town Hall, starting with Santa arriving at 6:30 p.m. and tree lighting at 7:30 p.m. with activities, entertainment, snacks, and photos taken with Santa. Donations to the Sparta Food Pantry will be accepted. The Sparta Seniors Annual New Year's Eve Party is Monday, December 30th. Please register with the Recreation Department as there are still some openings. Lastly, municipal offices will be closing at 3 p.m. tomorrow and will reopen on Monday, December 2nd at 8:30 a.m. I said that was lastly, and I was actually incorrect. I have one other thing to add. I recently learned that Councilwoman Quinn was a recipient of the 2024 Sussex County Municipal Alliance Volunteer of the Year Award. I think she is well earned an applause for that. Chief McCarrick will now read his portion of the manager's report. This concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor, Council, Sparta residents. I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving.
Good evening. Thank you, Manager Zepp. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. The Sparta Township Police Department applied and was awarded the New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety Drive Silver or Get Pulled Over year-end holiday crackdown. The township was awarded $7,000 to be utilized towards overtime personnel for DWI enforcement. The project period for this grant is December 6, 2024 through January 1st, 2025. Just to compare some recent statistics from Sparta Township on DWI arrest in 2023, from January 1st through November 25th, we had 41 DWI arrests. In 2024, from January 1st to date of November 25th, 49 DWI arrests. Compared back to 2022 at that time period, there were 60 DWI arrests. So we are seeing them going down, but we are ahead from last year. Additionally, this week with Thanksgiving, we will have extra patrols enforcing DWI, and these shifts are funded by the Drunk Driving Enforcement Funds, which are sponsored by the state of New Jersey. Our personnel is continuing to work on our motor vehicle crash study, which will provide the actual reported cause of the motor vehicle crashes for Phase 1, which we had completed. Once this is completed, it will be posted on our department's website. So we're working hard on that. This Thursday is the annual Crow's Turkey Trot. Please expect delays in the area. The plaza area is expected to close at approximately 6:30 a.m. and will reopen once the roadway is safe to do so, and that's usually around 11:30 a.m. We had officers, not this past weekend, prior weekend at a Stop and Shop for Cram the Cruiser, raising money and collecting donations for our local food pantries. Last thing I have to report is in 2023, the Sparta Police was awarded the Community Project Funding Grant with Congressman Josh Gottheimer's office. The purpose of this grant is to provide support, purchase updated interoperable first response communication systems to answer 911 calls. With this funding, our township was able to revamp our outdated emergency radio infrastructure. The new equipment is installed and operating extremely well. It's been 2 weeks since we had it fully finished and installed, and it is working very good. With this advancement, we were able to benefit radio communication for our police department, fire department, emergency medical service, our DPW services, and this project was visioned by the police department's IT support services, Joseph Kaliusov and David Drew. As a project became, a reality, the team was formed consisting of members from agencies that I just mentioned, and also from the Water Department, Corey Long. I would like to thank John Demachowski from the Sparta Fire, Ben Wright from Sparta EMS, Mike Barslowski from DBW, Richard Bartlett, who is one of our police department communications and records clerk, and also Corey Long from the Water Department for making this project come together. I also like to thank the manager for his support during this project, but I would really like to recognize both Joseph Kaliusef and David Drew from my IT support staff. These two individuals put an extraordinary amount of effort in to get this done. This project has been a vision of theirs for many years. With the funding, we were able to coordinate everybody in the township together, and they were able to see it through and take lead in the project. I'm very proud of what they have accomplished, and it's nice to see them excited from the beginning to the end to get this done. Project total was $889,855.72. The community grant portion from Gottheimer's office was $632,000, and then we also had $257,771 that was utilized with American Rescue Plan grant funds. So the best thing about it is it was paid for with all grant money. So proud of that.
Okay.
And the basic rundown of this infrastructure rebuild is when our officers and our first responders are out there communicating with radios, they could hear each other. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
It's
Thank
been an
you.
issue for a long time, so congratulations.
Very long time.
Yeah, and I just want to thank the department. I know that Chief McCarrick pursues grants like a dog on a bone. I mean, you really do a fantastic job with trying to find where we can get money to update our, infrastructure. And, you're not just, hey, we need this. Can you come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars? And no, you actually try to find sources that we don't have to incur ourselves. And so my guess, if we ever totaled up how much we get in grants and that helps fund our the stuff that our police department needs, those are things that we'd otherwise have to come out of the, our budget for, that we don't necessarily have to because, Chief McCarrick does such a fine job of pursuing these grants. So thank you very much. And again, thank you, Councilwoman Quinn, for your service with Municipal Alliance. It's a very critical group in Sparta, and we appreciate all that you've done, and I know the people of Sparta are very thankful for that.
Thank you.
All right, with that, may I have a motion to accept the manager's report?
I move that we accept the manager's report.
May I have a second, please?
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The manager report is accepted. We are now up to our first public comment period. This is for items that are not on the agenda, so if you see an item on the agenda that you want to talk about, now's not the time. These are for items that are not on the agenda, so please approach the microphone and say your name and record, and please be mindful of the 5-minute period. Thank you.
Jenny Derricks, Tap into Sparta. Corey is here. I was wondering if there was an update on the DCR Diamond Ship negotiations with the county planning board, county engineers, Bill Copenal and Matt Sink. Also, do we have an update on the grant money for the master plan, the Highlands grant money was supposed to be approved in October, and I haven't heard an update. And then, of course, a brownfield update. Do we have an update on the reapplication process and the appeal process and the search for land to swap out for closing the landfill? Thank you.
Did everyone get the 3 questions? So, okay. Okay.
I'll start backwards on that, Jenny. On the brownfield, there is some movement on that. We have the proposal set, and it's they're trying to get it heard by the Wetlands Board in their January meeting. So we're waiting for an outcome there. Corey, I will bring Corey up to talk about that. Yes, well, it's called the Wetland Mitigation Board as an arm of the DEP. And Corey will address those other two questions. The second one, though, is actually on the agenda.
The part about the master plan, we'll talk about that when we look at Resolution 918. Okay, it's okay, we'll wait to discuss that one. And then the other one with Diamond Chip and the discussions with the county. Actually, Jim and I both had a meeting with Bill Copenal and Matt Sinke, the county engineer and assistant county engineer, about the process that's proceeding right now with the intersection analysis. They actually have a sub-consultant working for the county, an outside firm. I think it's Boswell Engineering is doing a assessment for that for review. And as they move forward, they agree to keep us in the loop and actually have some review of the documents that come in as they move forward.
So I'm sorry, the last report I have from that, that covered the middle of the month of October through the beginning of November. There was a couple of documents from Boswell, including a draft letter talking about signaling an intersection. They believe that that's the most prudent way to go. And they also talk about taking in some land to expand the width of line crest from 33 feet to about 50 feet. They'd have to take land from private landowners, so I don't know if you had any update on that.
They have provided information to the county. The county did share their plans, preliminary plans with us when we did meet with them. It's basically right now, there was nothing I can share, anything being finalized, but they did look at the possibility of signalizing the intersection and doing other improvements to the intersection to improve sight distance, turning radii, and things of that nature.
Are they addressing the grade, the 12% grade?
They discussed the grade. They have some limitations to the grade due to the location of the railroad. But again, everything is preliminary.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Corey, just a question, to the extent that part of the plan that Boswell is doing, I understand, what gives the county jurisdiction is a county road, but I know it intersects with the Sparta road. What input do you understand that you can have, or that Sparta Township can have, with respect to where it intersects with the Sparta Township road? Will you have any input into that, or do you just have to do what Boswell
The
suggests?
county agreed that they would, discuss it with us and take our input, but the intersection itself falls under the jurisdiction of the county. And just like any intersection that intersects with a state DOT, state highway, that falls under the jurisdiction, always goes to the higher,
So even where you have an if the intersection, one of the roads is county, the other road is township, for purposes of that analysis, that township road is subsumed within the county, right? So the idea is you can't have competing, Sparta Township can't do its own engineering analysis just on the intersecting road.
They got to work eventually the county has the final say on it, but
I got you.
But when it comes to this process, the county engineering department agreed that they would involve us in the product before anything is finalized.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's very
Okay.
helpful.
Thanks, Corey.
Any other public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on. Now up to expenditures. Deputy Mayor Blumetti, would you please read the expenditures for November 12th, 2024?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the expenditures for November 12th, 2024 in the amount of $2,030.33.
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The November 12th, 2024 expenditures have been approved. Deputy Mayor Blumetti, would you please read the expenditures for November 26th, 2024?
I make a motion, we approve the expenditures for November 26th, 2024 in the amount of $7,147,470.54.
And I will second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The November 26, 2024 expenditures have been approved. We have a few ordinances to be introduced tonight. So again, this is just the introduction. Assuming that they pass, there will be a hearing on these ordinances at the next council meeting. So Madam Clerk, could you please read the title of ordinance 2419?
An ordinance amending Chapter 7, Traffic of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Sparta, amending Section 7-37.4, Regulation for the Movement and the Parking of Traffic on all other private property.
May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 2419?
I move that we introduce ordinance 24-19.
May I have a second?
I will second it.
All right, anyone from council have a comment before we go to roll call?
Maybe we could get an explanation.
Yeah.
For the public so that they understand, because we're not having a hearing tonight. So I think it would be wise if we could just, for each one of the ordinances, give a quick overview.
No problem. With this ordinance, this is directly related to Market Street up in the North Village complex. It's a private road, and it's basically overseen by an HOA. The HOA had contacted us about concerns of illegal parking on Market Street. There is an avenue for a private HOA to get law enforcement to enforce no parking. With that, they have to file Chapter 39 with the police department and basically petition that the law enforcement would have the authority to enforce this ordinance. And this ordinance basically takes Market Street and puts it on our list of other roads that there's no parking on one side as it establishes. And this will hopefully alleviate their issues up there. And basically, we're adding their road to our existing ordinances, existing streets of no parking in this particular matter.
Is this no parking sort of consistent with other probably HOAs that have also no parking that,
Yes.
okay,
It is, and our traffic and safety officer, Kurt Morris, he evaluates the whole thing and looks at, make sure it's justified and appropriate, which he has done.
okay. And who pays for the actual sign? Is that,
The HOA does.
Okay.
DPW put them up and installed them, and the HOA gets invoiced for it.
okay, got you. And then this, obviously, our police department would enforce it.
Correct.
Okay, got you. But in order to have enforcement of a private road and an HOA, they have to go through this route that we're going through now. They can't just throw up a sign and say, don't park here. And then
Correct.
call the police, and the police look at it and say, well, if you don't have an ordinance that allows it, then too bad.
Yeah,
Is that basically how it works?
Correct.
Okay. Got you. All right, with that, may I have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Quinn.
Yes.
Councilman Chiarello.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Blumetti.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Ordinance 2419 has been introduced. Madam Clerk, could you please read ordinance 2420?
An ordinance amending the general ordinances of the Township of Sparta in order to adjust certain fees and escrows.
All right. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 2420?
I move that we introduce ordinance 24-20.
May I have a second, please?
I will second it.
And before we go to roll call, could we just have a basic explanation, sort of as we did with the previous ordinance, the purpose of this ordinance, and I guess since it's adjusting fees, what are the categories of fees that are being adjusted here?
There's several categories on various departments throughout the town that utilized a fee structure for their services, ranging from the police department, the parks department, the fire prevention inspector, and our construction department. What we did is we solicited a survey to the department heads, and they have the opportunity to request adjustments to the fee schedules for their department if they find that they're lacking, to provide the service that they provide, that the service fee no longer is sufficient. So these are nominal adjustments to those fees.
Got you. So each department who is requesting a fee increase, they have to justify why they want it.
Yes,
Right.
they do. And
Okay.
they'll benchmark a market value on those many times. Like I'll read the justifications, and it'll be what other surrounding towns are offering for the same service. So they're not arbitrary in any way.
Got you. Any other members of council have questions regarding 2420?
I do, just one minor one caught my eye, and I'm not sure, Tom or Jim, tell me if you want me to wait for the hearing for this. It just involves the framework for one of these. So Section 6, there's increased fees for inspection of smoke detectors before closings of houses, before people close on the house.
Right.
And my question really is about, the closer it gets to the closing date, there's like 3 tiers, and the price jumps up as you get closer to the closing date. It just struck me as odd. I just wondered, there's probably a rationale, but.
Well, I have basically 2 fire marshals or inspectors, and they're part-time. We don't have a full-time fire marshal. So obviously, scheduling their services is a challenge. And so the closer you get to those closing dates, you're pulling them out of their existing schedule, and it becomes more and more of an inconvenience. And so that's really why it is. An incentive to
Supply
schedule
and demand.
earlier is really what
Okay.
we got there.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Any other questions from council regarding 2420? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Councilman Chiarello,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Blumetti,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Ordinance 2420 has been introduced. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title of ordinance 2421?
An ordinance amending Chapter 19 Water, Section 19-14A, Water Use Rates of the revised ordinances of the Township of Sparta, Sussex, New Jersey.
May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 2421?
I move that we introduce ordinance 24-21.
May I have a second, please?
I will second it.
All right, before we go to roll call, Manager Clerk, could you please explain the basis for this ordinance?
Sure, Mayor. What I've done tonight, because this is a significant ordinance, I brought our assistant engineer, Ralph Garcia, here. He's going to help explain what's behind this ordinance and why we have it tonight.
Yeah, and hopefully that microphone is working, so if you do take a seat, try to move the microphone as close proximity to your mouth as possible so the folks participating online can hear you.
I think it's good. Good evening. How are you, Mayor and
Hi,
Council? How are
Ralph.
you,
Thank
Manager
you.
Zepp? Our clerks. Would you like me to go? Jim, you want to talk a little bit about kind of the genesis of the study?
Sure.
And just, yeah.
So what we've done is we've known that the water utility and the sewer utility have been problematic, especially in our budget. It's been straining our budget tremendously. And one of the first things that I had done when I had taken office was we were, Ralph and I had discussed this and Corey on how we were going to tackle this. And the best way I thought to tackle this was we hired an outside agency to do a in-depth detail analysis of our utility and its fee structure and its uses. And with that, we did an RFP. We actually awarded the contract to Laracy and Associates to conduct this rate study analysis. And in the rate study analysis, it made a lot of observations and evaluations of the existing issues within the utility, and then made recommendations. The two utilities should be held, separate. They're not together as a unit, so they're analyzed separately. Any utility that the township has, or any township for that matter, should be self-sustaining. It should support itself with its own fee structure, usually based on user fees. All right. Our utility right now wasn't doing that, and it was shed on us. It became evident that we haven't had a fee increase on the since 2009. That's a significant fact. And then the analysis proposed suggestions on fee increases that would be most palatable to the users and the council. And with that, just so everyone knows, earlier today, I posted that rate analysis on the website. It's on the Water Department webpage, and you're welcome to view it. And it's out of the rate analysis that we have that these fee increases were recommended and proposed to us, and thus we are implementing them in this ordinance tonight.
Yeah, and I think also, thank you, Jim, one of the drivers too with this primarily is a lot of the capital improvements that we are going to be needing within the next 5 years. So a lot of the driver is, of course, we believe we did a bond ordinance last year for some of that to handle some of our capital improvements. With a lot of new regulations coming through, particularly with PFAS that we'll talk a little bit about. We have another recommendation for award a little later on, but that is becoming a really large driver in expense and costs to every utility, specifically ours. This utility is big. It has 20, how many wells, Corey? 31 wells, 3 different separate water systems here, 19 different treatment points. So it is a large, complex water system. There is a lot of compliance, and there is also there are a lot of capital improvements that will need to be done. Again, a lot of this really kind of comes back to the new regulations that have come through for PFAS, which now those regulations have changed as of April of 2024 this year, with a 5-year phase-in for a permanent change in the MCL levels for PFAS. So that is driving a lot of these necessary improvements to our system. And, some of our system, obviously here, just like every other system in New Jersey, is older, needs upgrades, needs a lot of newer equipment. And it is, a lot of that is built into, it was a major driver here for that rate increase on the water end. The water end, I mean, if you read it, the water is sustaining, is doing okay. These are just, part of that. If you read through it, there's also a $20 capital charge that will also be implemented through this rate increase. That'll go into a separate capital account, which we will utilize for capital improvements. Actually, the town I live in does the same thing, actually. So
Can I ask a quick question? So also we have opted, as you know, to get in with a lawsuit where we are looking to hold accountable the companies that were the biggest contributors to the problem, and there are many of them. So the question that I have is understanding that a lot of this work has to be done. Some of it just has to be done because it's a large system and updates need to be made. But a lot of other different changes and improvements need to be made to it because of this PFAS and the new regulation. So what I'm saying is, if we are successful in getting money out of there, then, how do we budget that? How do we increase the money right now, right? How do we increase it without knowing if we're going to get those monies to offset? And then what happens when you get if you get that offset? Are residents to expect they're going to get that money back? That's what I'm saying. I know it's tough, and I don't mean to put you on the spot.
And it's a great question,
But-
Councilwoman. And I will tell you that we looked at this, I worked with the auditor here to kind of put together a cost associated with some of the PFAS and other system improvements. It is in the millions of dollars. I'm not going to tell you. I've been doing this about 30 years. I talk to a lot of different people who run different systems. It is expensive to treat. Depending on the treatment method you use, PFAS, this is the driver for a lot of water systems now. It's the driver, that has caused them a lot of different things here in New Jersey. It's major. But to your point, we've built in capital money for the next 5 years. Now, there may be money coming from litigation, but, there is also federal money that is out there. There's also New Jersey Infrastructure Trust Bank where we could get low-interest loans for. So it's kind of a combination of 3 kind of different funding sources, too, along with our capital. But we cannot rely solely on, we know we're going to get money from a lawsuit. We know that's kind of a variable. We don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
It's an unknown.
I understand it's tricky,
Yeah.
but for people that have been hearing us talking about all of this and now see a rate increase, I just wanted to put something on the record to let them understand that this increase is not all-inclusive. we are still budgeting in and hoping that we will get
Absolutely.
additional funding to help
Absolutely.
offset the rest of it.
Absolutely.
But without the PFAS regulations changing in April, we would still need to make some of these changes anyway. So
yeah,
I just want
absolutely.
people to understand that.
Absolutely, yes.
Just to be clear, though, the fee increase, and also with the capital improvements, it doesn't assume grant funding, doesn't assume litigation funding. This is, because, we hope we get it, we may not.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It does not,
And
it does not
so,
assume those.
am I right, the two drivers of the fee increase are, one, that there hasn't been a rate increase since 2009. And so if you look at the rate of inflation since 2009, it's about 2.4% since 2009 that's now been compounded, right? So you can't, if people are saying, well, why is this huge delta? The inflation rate from 2023 to 2024 is 2%. How come your rate increase exceeds that? It's because you're making up for since 2009. And
Hence that first year of 5%.
yeah, got you. So we're playing catch up here.
Playing catch up. And then
Okay,
it drops
got you.
back to 2.5% for the 2 remaining years.
Got you.
Correct.
Okay.
If we did stay in line with inflation, we'd be up over $6 per 1,000 gallons right now. So even at the end of this, we're still well below where we would be if we kept up with inflation.
Got you. So just so that's a very important point. So what you're saying is, had we done 2% every year since 2009, we would be at about $6 right now. And what you're proposing is $5.
At the end of this, yeah, it would be
Okay.
just under $5
$4
per
and I think
1,000
90
gallons.
Okay.
Yeah, 97 cents. Yeah,
All right.
just under.
I wasn't good at math, but I think I remember that 5 is less than 6. So,
I think so.
okay. All right, thank you. And what else? I know that we have to keep sort of the water and the sewer separate, right? Because they have separate issues. I understand with the water, what's driving it is the two things: the fee, the need to increase it, which we haven't done in 2009,
Capital improvements.
and then capital improvements. What's the issue with the sewer utility, and why do we have to increase rates on that?
Well,
so
I'm
right
going
now-
to
I'll let Jim
interject
start
in
on the
that, only
financial end, yeah.
because the sewer is a more serious problem that is also complex. And
We do have an ordinance tonight, a resolution tonight.
not for sewer. This is
No,
strictly water.
Water, not sewer.
We will be addressing the sewer first thing next year.
Okay, so this is only dealing with water rates,
We're only
nothing to do
dealing
with
with
sewer
water
rates?
rates right
Okay, got you. All right, so in January, folks should stay tuned for a sewer discussion. Okay,
So,
Yes,
got you.
correct.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. So just to clarify, it looks like the rates are going up. But thank you for being here too, both of you. Appreciate it tonight. It looks like the rates are going up 5% for next year, and then after that, annually, just 2.5%.
Yes.
And then there's an additional small quarterly capital fee, right? $20. Okay. So I saw that there was projections on the average bill for a resident and how they would go up.
in the report.
In the
correct.
reports?
Yeah, in the audit.
Yeah, that's correct.
The report.
Okay. I read through this. It makes sense. We haven't done anything in 15 years, and more expenses are coming down the pike. Just the one thing that caught my eye, and if you could just talk a little bit more about those capital investment projections. They are pretty extensive compared to what we've done in the past, right? Which is
Correct.
probably why we're due to do them. But so for example, and most of it is from bonds, and loans, notes, and the interest on that, the debt service is what adds a lot to this. So for the next 5 years, next year would be 2 million, then 2.25 million, then 2.35 million, 2.25 million, 2.35 million. Each year, those aren't a cumulative total. That's new each year, each new capital investment. Can you just share a little bit of the framework for that?
Sure.
Is
So,
that
so the thought process with that is that as we kind of looked at the system, there were really 3 kind of main kind of improvements that we kind of tried to focus on. One was obviously the PFAS regulations and mitigating PFAS, right? 2 is we have 14 water storage tanks here that we actually just did an evaluation of all those tanks earlier this year and found that we've got about 5 that are in need of
Immediate.
that need repair quite sooner than later.
Okay.
So, we've kind of, we also allocated for those, also allocated for a kind of meter replacement program townwide also. When I understand it's been about 20 years, Corey.
Yeah, roughly 20 years
Since-
on average.
since water
They
meters here have also
should be
been
checked,
changed,
like,
so-
every 10.
Right. So meters tend to under-register over time, right? Also affects revenue. So, we've kind of built those into those 5-year capital improvements. The PFAS is, I keep on saying it, but it is such the main driver because depending on how we treat it, what type of method is used, how many treatment points we have, it can get very expensive. So that is, and that kind of ties back into, you'll see a recommendation for a water system analysis. That was kind of the genesis of that too, because we need to tie that all back into how we're going to improve our water system. So it's, it all kind of ties together here and it drives our capital improvements as well.
Okay. So when the public, hopefully, some people will read through this report, so they can rest assured that the capital projections for the next 5 years were not just done by this consultant only, they had your input and they're pretty concrete ideas.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were, and, we are, yeah, we've definitely thought it out.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
Ralph, I had a question as well. And this came up also during our latest Council Connect session. So many of the residents in Sparta have wells. So the question is, how do people that have wells, A, do this testing? Because we know it's it's minuscule, right? The particles for the PFAS.
It's in parts per trillion, which are
I mean, it's
Right.
parts per trillion, which is.
very minute.
So the question that we got, and I think it's going to affect a lot of people that have wells that are asking themselves now, how do I test my well water? We're going to make all these strides and all these improvements in the city
In the public system, right.
water,
right.
the public system. But what do people do that have wells?
I'm going to defer to Corey. I believe when you sell a house now, Corey, am I correct, that they do test for
PFAS, I'm
for
not sure.
PFAS?
But ultimately,
sure.
anybody that is interested in that, there are links on websites.
Can you just, sorry, yeah.
Ultimately, there's links for state and federal certified labs that do that sort of testing. So I would have to defer to them because I'm unsure of the difference between
And
homeowner
we can-
versus
I can
municipal.
find out. I mean, I can get
I
that
think what,
information. We can get
Yeah.
that even on the township website. It would be helpful for people who have private.
because I think it's clear that we're not going to be, it would be great if they would do what we did with the radon testing for the water and everybody gets a kit and a little kit. But because of the small particles in this, obviously, I'm sure they're not going to be free and I'm sure they're not going to be itty bitty little kits that we're just going to be able to give out at town hall.
Right.
So if maybe we could put that information out on our website to make sure that for people with wells that have concerns, I think that would be beneficial to the.
We could look into
And
that,
actually
yeah.
reaching out to the county health department too. I know they
Okay.
do ours. And I'm sure that, they deal with this and I'm sure they've got a criteria for testing as well. So
Thank you.
that's great. Yeah, and we'll put that on the website.
Okay.
And for the budgeting for the capital improvements, what do you, if you foresee, what could affect those numbers either going up or going down, whereby you say, you come back to us in a year and say, you know what, we're way off on our projections. It's going to actually cost 50% more than we anticipated for the capital improvement. Is that something we can expect, or what are the factors that would affect, that we, it's sort of, not to quote, what are the, the known unknowns?
It's a great question. I think, part of that is going to be, once we get an analysis of our water system performed, we're going to look at kind of the treatment points, the treatment methods for PFAS, right? So we may be able to centralize treatment for 5 or 10 wells at one location, right? Extend the water main there, do some interconnections, and then now we're treating water from 5 or 8 wells at one location rather than treating it at 19 treatment points or, at our 29 well sites. So to do that, and this kind of, I'm gonna jump a little all over the place because it ties back to our analysis. We're not going to know that we can do that for sure and how it's going to work until we get an engineering analysis to look at the hydraulics, to look at a lot of different things in the water system, to see the best way to kind of tie it all together and to see if we can eliminate and kind of streamline our treatment, right? And so the numbers I used were based on, kind of current conditions and what the kind of going rate, what the going industry rate is for PFAS and how to treat it. But yeah, some of those may be subject to change, as we get a little closer. But again, there are different funding sources. A lot of the engineering firms, the one in particular that we're using, is really great with, securing funding through the iBank, really low infrastructure trust loans, and that'll go for 5 or 8 or 10 years. So, and they kind of know how to get through, use the iBank system. So, it's a bit of, it's a lot of things combined together that are going to help us kind of chart a path forward for this.
And
But
are they
when-
also aware of any deadlines that are in existence for applying for those loans? So I know the analysis will take some time. I think my concern as a council person is that, we spend a lot of time in the analysis. By the time we're finished, the deadline to apply to the iBank or to a funding source is now lapsed.
I think the iBank is a revolving fund. You can always go and apply for funding with the DEP. And, I know the EPA now is supposedly going to be putting out also a lot of money for PFAS, because obviously they've kind of initiated this new regulation that everyone has 5 years to comply with. And they've also put some money out there for, towns and water systems to hopefully, to go and procure. And we will obviously pursue all of that in as much as we can, obviously.
Okay, that's helpful.
So Mayor, yeah, I know we're jumping ahead here, but one of the resolutions on the agenda today is for this master water analysis. And it's tied in directly to everything they're talking about, all right? And it becomes really essential to provide us with that integral information to make the best decisions on where to spend our money. And so that's what that analysis is. The other thing is I'm pretty happy to say that Sparta Township is really almost ahead of the game on this whole PFAS. As you know, we got in early on the class action. Both Corey's and Ralph here, we knew this was going to be an issue right ahead, and we've been on it for right from the get-go. And now we're asking the council for the funding stream to address this, and I'm pretty happy with the way it's been going, because I don't think there's anything else we can do other than what we're doing to address this situation. A lot of the small towns, the small water systems that have PFAS, they're going to go under, and they're going to be bought out by much bigger outfits, and so I like the direction we're going here, and I have confidence that this is working out the best it can.
Thank you. Any other one have any questions? Okay, with that, Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Councilwoman Quinn.
Yes.
Councilman Chiarello.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Blumetti.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, ordinance 2421 has been introduced. There are no hearings.
Thanks for
on
spending time with us.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Oh, no,
Appreciate
thank you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
No problem. Thank you.
There's no hearing of ordinances. We are now at our second public comment period. This is limited to the resolution. So if you look at number 9 in the agenda, you will see a bevy of resolutions. So if there's one of those resolutions you want to talk about, now's the time to do it. You just have 5 minutes to do so, and please state your name and address for the record.
Jenny Derrick's tapping to Sparta. I have a number of questions. Number 9.9, can we get an explanation of what this emergency is for the solid waste? 9.10, the aforementioned hiring of the water investigation company Boswell. I've heard that it was just stated that they're going to be looking at getting funding for low-interest loans, but what about grants? Will they be applying to the state for grants, to the state and the federal? And those monies do run out. So is Boswell is that within the scope of their work? And are we going to sit around and wait for the analysis to go through until we, and then apply for the grant? Or how is that going to work to make sure we don't miss out on that money? Is there any change on 915? Is there any change in cost for Catherine Sarmad having gone on her own? 916, why is Sparta late in using our grant money? 918, so that's the one that's going to get us the funding for the master plan, if I'm correct. Is that correct? Thank you. 919 and 19 and 20. Why are we just accepting the audit results of the 22 audit now? Have we been incorporating the 19 recommendations within that audit that was done in on the 2022 budget, accepted or given to us in 2023 with 19 recommendations? Have those 19 recommendations already been addressed or are being addressed? Or are we just starting that now? That's it.
The audit was for 2023, just to let you know.
It was for the year of 2024. I mean, 2022.
I don't, it was for the period ending December 31st, 2023.
That's,
I think it's just a typo, I believe.
Right.
oh,
in the-
okay.
Yeah.
All right, because it did say 22. All right, thank you. All right,
Mayor, I know you normally go through these.
I mean, we can,
If you want to just do it your way, and I think we'll end up addressing a lot of
yeah,
her
why don't, because
questions.
I do plan on carving out those resolutions.
Mayor, if I can make a recommendation, since there's so many, could we just go down to dais and have anybody ask any questions that they want to any of the resolutions, and then have maybe a second pass to see if there's any we want to carve out for a vote?
Well, I think the ones that I think is sort of obvious that we would be carving out are, because the ones that Ms. Derrick's mentioned were ones that I was going to carve out anyway for questions. So what I can do is, what I think, unless we can move on from public comment,
That's
if
fine.
anyone
If
else.
you're gonna
and then
get- if you're gonna
what
get
I'll
to 'em,
do-
if
none
not,
of the
I'll-
ones, everyone you mentioned, I plan on dealing with separately.
great, thank you.
I
And
guess
then,
my point is, if my question's answered, I've got no need to carve it out, so it might make it go faster. But it's
Yeah.
up to you.
yeah, I think I have some questions on some of these as well. So anyone else on resolutions?
Yeah, Rick Finkel, Hayward Road. I have a question on 921, and maybe it's just a better explanation, but I see a lot of movement of funds from and to, like $500,000 to the police department. Is that a lack of budgeting? Or why did we need to shift that kind of money? I see money's going to rec services. I thought they had their own budget. So how did we find $85,000 for them? We just had a presentation on water. You're moving, it's only $18,000, but from the water department to EERS, that's a retirement system. So I don't understand the correlation between those. And then it said solid waste salaries. I thought we outsourced solid waste. And that's like 151,000. So why is that even in the budget? So I don't, are you going to get into
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
or
I
where do
plan
we
on
get-
carving that out, and so I'll try to see that those questions get answered when we carve that out. But I think you've raised some significant and important questions, and I want to make sure when we carve that one out to get those answered for you.
Okay.
Because, the problem is if I go to the resolution, it's helpful that you tell me your questions, because I want to incorporate them when we go it. Otherwise, your question doesn't get answered, right? Because you had no opportunity to raise your issues, so.
Fine, thank you.
Any other comments related to the resolutions?
Yes.
Okay?
Mark Scott, 9 Pueblo Parkway. Just wanted to comment, I was down at the municipalities the other day, and they had a tremendous presentation on PFAS and how Essex Fells worked to clean up their system. They've been working for several years in conjunction with Suburban Engineering, and over the past 3 years, they've developed a system that originally was going to cost $5 million, ended up costing $9 million, and they were able to obtain grants over the past few years to knock down the cost of that by approximately $6 million. I thought Suburban was very impressive, and my question is I spoke to Jim the other day, and thank you very much for your time. But we talked about Boswell, and Boswell's not going to have their I guess their initial report done for a year. After that, then comes the feasibility, the design, the bidding, and then the construction. I guess you really don't lock in the funding until construction, but you can start on the grants a little bit earlier. The grants run out on June 30th of 2027. So if we don't finish the plan for another year, that puts us at the end of 2025, and then we've got feasibility, design, bidding, and construction to get done before we can even obtain any of that grant money. I understand the state money is starting to dwindle, and the federal money ends in 27. I spoke to Suburban. I just wanted to know why they have no record of being contacted. And I just wanted to know if there was a chance that we could talk to them. They seem to have a very comprehensive plan. I just wanted to know, will Boswell be conducting all these phases? Feasibility, design, bidding, construction.
When you're finished, Mark, I'm happy to.
I'm done.
Take care of that. I'm going to let my assistant engineer, Ralph Cartier here.
Okay.
He handled a lot of most of the legwork on this project.
Great.
Yeah, come on up.
So what we did, Mr. Scott,
Could you use
Ralph,
the microphone? like a
use the
handout?
microphone.
Otherwise, people that are watching can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know what? It's just easier. I'll stand. Okay. Perfectly fine, if you don't mind. Is that fine? No. So what we did is, we, working with our purchasing agent, we put together an RFP. So we did a request for proposal for professional services. And we have an RFP that we put together with all different outlines of what the scope of this analysis would be. It was publicly advertised, just so you know. So everyone that had an opportunity to take a bid, to bid on it. So sorry about that. Thank you so much. So everyone, it was advertised out to the public, and actually happened to know Suburban. I don't know who you spoke to there, but I probably have dealt with them a lot in the past. They're a very good firm, very reputable firm. Probably dealt with a lot of the engineering firms at the league. And I don't believe we did not receive anything back. We only received 3 proposals back from qualified engineering firms. Suburban was not one of them. So, and with regard to how this is going to kind of play out with funding, a lot of times, even with federal funding, we need to capitalize that ahead of time. So we have to front the money to kind of get reimbursed for the money too, with a lot of federal grants. But there is money out there. And what we will do with this analysis is we will look at it. We will see how we're going to treat for PFAS. As I said, we've got, Corey, 29 different wells here, 31, right? And it's 19 different treatment points. So the point of this analysis is to get a comprehensive overview of our system, look at the hydraulics, look at the best way to kind of minimize treatment points. And once we do that, then we can put together plans and we can get together a real plan on how we're going to treat it and the best ways to do it. But as I said before, I just wanted to kind of really accentuate the fact that this was done through a professional, an RFP, was sent out to bid. We actually here interviewed all the engineering firms that were here. It was 4 of us that did it. It was a very transparent and open process. Right. And yeah, and a lot of this, we will know better how to treat it, how to fund it. All right. I'm sure if you you know, I happen to know Suburban well. I'm sure they told you 3 or 4 different treatment methods you use for PFAS, right? That depends on the type of water, what, you know, groundwater, the makeup, the chemical makeup of the water, and that also is going to depend on how we treat it. So there are a lot of unknowns here that we need to kind of find out as we go through this process with the analysis, so we know the best way to treat it and the best way to kind of consolidate and the most cost-effective way to do it too. But, you know, I happen to know Suburban. They are a good firm. Yeah.
So what do you think of this, the timing?
I think once we kind of look at the hydraulics, try to get the analysis going, we will, I think they will have a general idea as to how we're going to be able to attack the PFAS, right? How we're going to treat it, how we're going to move forward. You know, we like to try to get it done within the year. We could probably get it done sooner. But, you know, again, we are capitalizing money for these improvements, right? And, you know, some of this is going to take a little bit of time, but we also want to do it right. And we want to make sure that we're treating it right. And we want to make sure that, you know, this is going to be done the most cost-effective way as well.
When you use the word capitalizing, what are you saying? What do you mean?
Budgeting, for example, we talked a little bit about the water rate study and how we do a 5 or 10-year capital budget, right? Right. So I mean, you want to try to project and capitalize out all the improvements that you need to do, so you have an idea on how to budget in the future, right? It's kind of how utilities always.
So we're saving for it.
Yeah, you're essentially putting into the budget for future years, so you could project out what you will need going forward. Yeah.
I'm just concerned that we do our best to take advantage of any grants. that
Oh,
come.
absolutely. But, you know, to do that, we will, you know,
I think we
when you,
need to move on. I'm sorry.
yeah, when you go to the DEP or EPA, you also need to have a plan. You need to have, obviously, numbers and budgets for them to work.
Okay, thank you very
No,
much.
no problem. My pleasure.
Thank you, Ralph.
And thank you for your time.
Anyone else wishing to be heard on the resolutions for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the resolutions. I'm going to try to do a few of these en masse because there's a few that are we've done repeatedly and aren't necessary to have a separate discussion. I just need to pull up. Okay, I would like, may I have a motion to approve resolutions 9-1 through 9-6 and 9-11 through 9-14. So the motion is to approve resolutions 9-1 through 9-6 and resolutions 9-11 through 9-14.
I move that we approve resolutions 9-1 through 9-6 and 9-11 through 9-14.
Yes. Right, may I have a second?
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So resolutions 9-1 through 9-6 and 9-11 through 9-14 have been approved. We will now handle the remaining resolutions, one after the other. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-7, which is a resolution authorizing the purchase of bulk rock salt for the Department of Public Works via Sussex County Purchasing Agreement for 2024-2025.
No, this is just a resolution to use the contract to purchase salt. This
So
is,
we have a motion, but we need a second. We don't-
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, so I think the question, and maybe what Councilwoman Quinn is, my understanding, I thought we had plenty of rock salt because we had some pretty mild winters, and what's the necessity to buy salt at this juncture? I thought we had plenty already.
we do have plenty in supply, but we want to take advantage of any pricing because we don't know if it'll go up again. And what we do is usually when we dwindle the supplies down, we'll replace it.
They replace it.
And I'll be honest with you, we never filled the shed completely at any time when the new building was built. We're doing pretty well on the treated salt, that because I'm using the dome for that. The barn itself, though, there's sufficient supply for the town without a doubt, but we do, as we use the salt, we'll replenish it. And we need to, by resolution, designate the vendor that we're purchasing the salt from. And this is a co-op vendor, Sussex County, the best pricing out of all the co-ops we belong to. And we do this every year.
So this just gives you the ability to buy it if you need it and when you need it.
Yep.
It's not saying you have to buy it, it's just saying you are approved to buy it should you need it, correct?
Yes.
So these are essentially contract setups.
Yes, exactly.
And the other question I had was, what happens when the rates fluctuate during the year? So we're locked in now for a little while with these contracts. What happens if the rate goes down? And we want to purchase salt then? Do we have to do new contracts or?
Well, what's unique about these co-ops is each co-op, they bid their contracts at different times of the season. And so you'll see different rates and they are locked in. And when you get a variable rate, you're committed to the usually the one contract that you've done your resolution for. All right. But every year they go back out to bid depending on, when the contract expires. And then that's why we participate in all of them. So we can maximize our opportunity to get the lowest price. This year it's with Sussex County. Some years it's with Somerset. Some years it's with Morris Co-op. We're across the board. But, it's such a short period of time that when the rates change, you do try and jump on it with whichever co-op was able to get the lowest rate.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions regarding 9.7? Okay, all those in favor of Resolution 9.7, say aye.
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 Resolution 9.7 has passed. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9.8, which is a resolution authorizing the purchase of treated rock salt for the Department of Public Works via Somerset County Purchase Agreement for 2024-2025.
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and I think our answers to 9.7 answer the questions that we would have to 9.8. So all those in favor of Resolution 9.8, say aye.
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 Resolution 9.8 has passed. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9.9? And this is Township of Sparta Emergency Resolution under 3% limitation.
I'll make a motion to approve 9.9. I'm sure there'll be discussion.
And may I have a second, please?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Okay, and I'll take it back to council. Council Deputy Mayor Blumetti, you said you had some questions regarding this?
I think we need to explain it first because this, my understanding of this is to bridge a gap that occurred because of the rate hike with Blue Diamond that was not forecasted in our budget. Is that correct?
But we had a new contract last year that we had
Right.
awarded for Blue Diamond. And in essence, this year's budget did not reflect the amount needed to pay for the new contract.
Can I ask if I heard that correctly? So when you say we didn't have the money to pay for the new contract, so this is for $60,000. So we're saying that the new contract, what we owe to the vendor this year was not covered in the new fee structure because of when we changed the fees, or what happened? There's a little gap at the end of the year?
It's both,
Okay.
because you'll see the fee part down the agenda.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, that's,
So, and it's a little bit of both. It wasn't, not enough was allocated this year. And to help get corrected is this emergency appropriation under the 3%. And there is the announcement of the fee increase for next year.
okay. So in essence, we owe this to the vendor, and and ideally, we would have collected this in fees throughout the whole year from residents for garbage pickup, but we just
We don't,
underestimated, or
right. This is to get us to the end of the year.
yeah.
All right, so we're paid up, we're in good terms, but in order to finish out the budget, this emergency appropriation, thus emergency, needs to be made.
Yeah.
And then next year, the proper funding will be put in place to offset, and the rate increase will go into effect, which will keep everything at zero, and you will not have to do this next year.
That's the plan.
Okay, any other questions with respect to 9.9?
The account of professional consulting and special services strikes me as odd. Is that normal for solid waste?
Blue Diamond is a professional service, and so out of the state budget structure, all the categories are usually the same. So whenever we use professional service, whether it's attorneys, your services, your outside services, it'll usually be derived out of that line.
I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions with respect to 9.9? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 9.9, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 9.9 has passed. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9.10, which is awarding a professional services contract for the water systems engineering analysis for the Sparta Township water utility?
I move that we approve Resolution 9-10.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, we've had a pretty lengthy discussion about the purpose of this analysis. I don't necessarily see the need for any additional. I will just make a comment that, of what's been addressed, that my hope is that we will pursue with, due diligence and speed any kind of funding that would be necessary, whatever that analysis reveals of the capital expenditures that will be necessary, and that we do so without blowing any deadlines that would foreclose us from obtaining the necessary capital improvement funding. So I think that's, speaking for myself, that's what I hope. I know that's, Ralph, that's your intention as well. And so I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
And Mayor, you'll realize, because of the way we're set up here, is you folks will be authorizing those resolutions throughout the year, so you'll become aware of every grant activity that goes on.
Thank you. All right, so we have a first and a second. All those in favor of approving Resolution 910, say aye.
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 Aye. Resolution 910 has been approved. And we've done 11, 12, 14, 15. Okay, we're now up to Resolution 916 because we handled the other ones previously.
15.
15, okay. Hold on. Oh, got it. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 915, which is a resolution of the Township of Sparta awarding a professional service agreement for planning services to Catherine Sarmad, PP, AICP, and Sarmad Planning Group, LLC.
I move that we approve Resolution 9-15.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
And before we get to, is this, what was the, I understand, Catherine has been with us for quite some time. I understand her affiliation has now changed. Is that right?
Yes, the unique circumstance where Catherine is separated from her employer, and she is operating on her own as an LLC. And this resolution is to carry her services with the township to the end of the year. And then next year, we'll do another professional service agreement and resolution.
And she would have been carried through the year into, had she not had separated from, I believe it was Harbor, she would have been carried through to December 31st, 2024.
Correct.
Right? And so this is simply because of the change in her affiliation. It required us to basically change, the name, that her contract still goes through December 31st, but it's under the Sarmad Planning Group, LLC.
Correct.
Okay. Got you. And the rate is still, is it higher or lower than it was when she was affiliated with Harbor? Do you know?
I think it's an extra $5 an hour more,
Okay.
I believe.
Anyone else have questions regarding 915? Okay, all those in favor of Resolution 915, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 915 has passed. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 916, a resolution granting approval to submit LAX-1 award extension application on executed grant contract with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the project entitled Sparta Avenue Streetscape Project, Sparta Township, Sussex County.
I move that we accept approve Resolution 9-16.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
And why do we need an extension agreement for this?
I have Corey here.
Okay.
He's going to help explain this.
Okay, this extension agreement is related to a New Jersey Department of Transportation municipal aid grant that was acquired out of fiscal year 2023 grant process. It actually was awarded in 2022 for a project. It's called Sparta Avenue Streetscape Project, but it's actually, the name says Sparta Avenue Streetscape, but the scope of the project was to bring sidewalks from approximately Mohawk Avenue up to the theater, the Sparta Theater Complex. The project itself, the township received $232,890 for that grant. The only issue with that is that it's $1 million project. And in the last 2 years, it was never funded for the rest of the project. So we, after talking with Jim, I tried to have the department move the funds to another part of the roadway, for instance, Sparta Avenue, which we applied for this year. So we can go, try to maintain the sidewalks and improvements that we have today that are deteriorating and need of repairs, but they would not shift it from a different section of town. It had to stay within that part of the project. So with the funding not in place for the municipal part of this project, discussing it with the DOT, they had recommended us to request an extension, and then we can possibly rescope the project a little bit, scale it back, but don't lose the funding. So right now we're asking for an extension, which will give us an extension until we have some time to work with the DOT and probably come up with a project that will both be a little bit fall inside the grant specifics, but also allow us to put some funds in 2025 budget so we can actually afford the project. And my thoughts, this project, a good portion of this would be to extend sidewalks from Mohawk up to Winona Parkway. There's sections there's no sidewalks. That'd be a good location. It's a design that actually was done about half a dozen years ago. It's completed, at least mostly completed. We can scope that project. We can give some estimates. We can work with the DOT. This extension allows us some more time to work with the DOT and come up with a project that could work with us, work with the township in scope and budget.
Okay. So just so I understand, the grant was for $232,890. But when you did the actual analysis of what you actually want to do, it would cost about $1 million. So you have that delta between those two numbers, and it's that delta of trying to get that $1 million down to where you're paying for more than 23% of the project, because the grant now is only basically 23% of the project.
Right. When I say the million, I'm rounding up a little bit.
Sure.
When they did the grant estimate back in 2022, it was $830,000. I think today's cost, I think you're going to be dancing close to $1 million when it comes to the construction. We have right-of-way, we have easements. If anybody's familiar with the area from basically Winona Parkway up to the theater, it's some tough terrain in that area where you can have retaining walls and some sizable project to get the site, to get the construction up to this point. So my estimate right now is it's going to be approximately $1 million to do that work. And that's, again, it was not budgeted in 2023 or 2024. And that's why the project hasn't gone anywhere. But I think that if we can get the extension, we're basically requesting about a six-month extension to refine the scope of the project and come up with a project that we can bid that the DOT will approve and will fall inside a budget that we can live with the township.
Thank you for that. If I can ask, and Councilwoman Quinn, you might have to jog my memory because my memory, it's a little bit fuzzy here, but this goes back 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago. I remember seeing designs for a project to bring sidewalks up to the theater district. And I remember that project being in the 900,000 range, and I thought we had a grant for that. And then when we reevaluated the project, the grant money fell short of that.
Right.
And so
And I know-
I guess we didn't act on that grant, so we didn't receive the grant. How does that, if my memory is correct, how does that relate to the 200,000-ish?
I think it's separate. I think it was a separate funding source. It might have been DOT funding, but it was a separate, grant, period for those funds that did not go through. I haven't, wasn't involved with that, haven't researched that. I just know this one in front of us. This was, when you talk about when it was done, I think the plans, the preliminary plans I have are dated 2017.
Sounds right,
Yeah, so
2017.
it's been around for a while. Actually, my father-in-law, did a scoping for this project probably 15 to 20 years ago. And then the design went in 2017, they moved it forward. The grant, when they applied for the grant, which is a little odd, it was say it was 830,000, they applied for the whole $830,000, which I understand the motive, trying to get as much money as you can, but when you come back with 220 and you had 830, budget at that time, that's a large balance to try to come up with in your capital budget.
I think the other thing was, if I remember correctly, we applied for the budget monies originally and did not realize that you needed a shovel-ready, like you needed to have the plan done to get the shovel in the ground the day you got the money. And the first time we put in for it, we did not have those plans.
Gotcha.
The second time we put in for the money, before we put in for the money, we had the plans, so that on day one, when we got the money, we would be able to move forward. But these are different, some of the things that we have implemented over time, it's like a patchwork quilt. You can't go from like Woodport Road all the way down Main Street. So when the grants and whatnot come in, they're specific, as you know, to the different pieces of the project. So it's frustrating because it feels like you just wanted to kind of get into a flow and get the whole thing done. And instead, it's sort of done patchwork, but we'll get there.
Well, Jim and I talked about trying to maintain some of the streetscape you already have, which is important. Like, for instance, last year, the funding we have for 2024 was Main Street. We have that designed, preliminary design. We're going to be putting that out to bid in 2025 for construction. So that's one item we're going to, put into 2025 budget. We also, we did apply for the 2025 fiscal year, which we got awarded $115,000 for redoing some of the sidewalks on Sparta Avenue. When I say Sparta Avenue, different Sparta Avenue. I don't know why this is titled Sparta Avenue, but it's actually, Woodport Road. But the Sparta Avenue in the area of, Ungerman Park and, the ice cream, and Burger King and those type of, if anybody goes through that roadway, you see how it's deteriorating to the salt content coming of the state highway. So that's what we did get about $115,000 this year, which we're going to put that in the budget as well. Because that's kind of, I think the focus I'd like to do is try to clean up what you have. But this 220,000 is too good to give away. So I think it's a good idea to get the extension work and try to get, there's a missing link there. If anybody's walked along, from Mohawk Ave to Winona, there's no sidewalk there into large sections. So I'd like to try to target that with the funding that's available.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to be clear, you have those access to those plans, because I definitely remember seeing them. So you said you have them,
Yes.
right? And that's $1 million-ish project. We're going to hold if we get the grant, the 200,000-ish grant in abeyance until we get the rest of it, or we're going to fund the other 800,000 through a bond, or?
This is the first step. For instance, I put it, there's a system called PMRS, which, Mayor Clark, you probably get CC'd on every PMRS posting because you're the mayor. That's, we started the process of the extension because we're at the limit now. This resolution will give us the opportunity to, work to save the grant and extend it. Once we receive it, what I'd like to do is work with the department to bring the scope down. Because whether or not we come up with $1 million, I think it's going to be important that if we we're able to extend the grant, that we come up with a buildable project in 2025. So I think we're going to reduce the scope. And then later on, we'll apply for additional funding if we decide to continue it up to the theater. It's a great project. It's just
It is a great project.
very
And-
costly.
And while the chief is here, if I may, there might be, I don't know if there's a study or if there's something that the department can add that would say that there is a safety concern there that might be used as a impetus to the project as well. Like, I don't know if you have it, I mean, not you have it at your fingertips, but if you can research, there have been how many pedestrian accidents or so-and-so that might help us push us along with this project.
I can research that.
Thank you.
Wouldn't hurt.
And just so I'm clear, I think that Councilman Chiarello touched on something that, did we have a grant for sidewalks to go from Woodport Road up to the theater? And then we ran into the same problem that we're running into here, which is the grant isn't sufficient to cover the cost of the project. So not only did we lose the grant funding, but we also basically had to ditch the project because it was too, did that happen with respect to the, the sidewalks going to the Sparta Theater? I know that may be before your time, but.
I think it's definitely before my time, but I think Councilwoman Quinn basically did comment that at that time they had a grant, they applied for a grant, they didn't have a ready project. And when I say ready, sometimes you don't have to have the design ready 100%, but you do have to have the land available to do the project. And when I state that these projects, there's so many walls and slopes, easements and things of that nature and right of way that are required. Sometimes there, so and that's not the first time I heard it. There was another grant. I think the DOT told me the same thing, that there was a grant before that was rescinded. And I don't know the year of that, but this one here is a 2023, and this is the one we have in front of us, and we can save this one. That's one.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because I think, they're two separate issues. One is you can't get the grant because you don't have a shovel-ready project. So you don't get the money at all. That's in a different bucket in my mind. The separate bucket is you get the grant money, but you never get around to expending the funds because there's such a delta between the grant and that. And so it sounds like with respect to the grant, we did actually at one point receive a grant for sidewalks to go up to the theater, but it was too costly to do, and so those fundings rescinded at some point. That
They expire is
Expire.
what
They
happens.
expire.
Okay, got you.
That's like this one's going to expire.
Yeah, so that's the whole point. We don't want this one to expire, and then you have zero then you're starting with having to come up with the entire amount.
Now, like I stated before, we're at the limit of this grant. This resolution allows us to file the extension and request it. The department could still say, you run out, you haven't awarded during the time, they could say no. But I think the chances are low if we have the council's backing and have the
Okay.
extension.
Is there an opportunity for Safe Routes to Schools grants to come into play? And maybe, and I don't know if we have an answer now, but might be
could.
something to look at.
That could.
Yeah, I think we should pursue all efforts to, close that gap between the grant and the amount that would be needed to complete the project. And if that means another funding source to come in, as Councilman Chiarello, I think we would be interested in that.
It could be another phase.
Sure.
If you look at the beautification, project, I saw a map, I think Jim shared, you found one at one point that I think we're up to phase 4 or 5 on this, on this project. So you can definitely, add another phase to it. And when we submit the grants, typically we don't submit them for the full dollar amount. We normally, we have an idea what the municipal aid grants are going to go for, and to make sure we plan for, a project that's doable with the money that we think we're going to get. You get more, great, but trying to apply for the whole thing is optimistic at best.
Got you. Okay, all those in favor of Resolution 916, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 916 has passed. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 917, a resolution of the Township of Sparta setting the solid waste utility service charge?
I move that we approve Resolution 9-17.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
And,
Oh, I'll second it.
okay, we have a second. And what is this solid waste utility service charge? What is this for?
Garbage.
This is for the curbside trash recycling pickup. This is along the same vein of not having the utility appropriation set up yeah, in the first place. Happy to say, you know, obviously, we got new finance staff, and we are correcting a lot of issues that we're finding and other issues that the auditor is finding. And by correcting this with this ordinance, this will set us straight for the remainder of the contract, which is 4 years.
Okay, so as you alluded to earlier, the goal of a utility is to make sure that the fees that you receive for that utility are sufficient to fund the operations of the utility.
Correct.
Right, and so what we've run into is that sometimes the fees aren't sufficient to run the utility, and that's what we're encountering here with respect to the trash.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the understanding here is that this increase is the adjustment that we'll need now going forward for the next 4 years, right? Have
Correct.
A 5-year contract.
Correct.
So I think it's important for the residents to know, I'm not sure if tonight's sufficient, maybe there's some messaging we can put with the bills that instead of increasing it a little bit over the next 4 years now, that we're kind of doing this now and spreading it out, and the intention is to keep this set, right, for the rest of the contract?
Exactly. You're absolutely correct. And it puts some stability. A lot of residents like to schedule out their payments, especially their online payments, stuff like that. And we did this with that in mind, and I'm pretty confident that we're good for the next 4 years.
Is there a way that we can communicate that logic to the residents so it doesn't just seem like it's a random increase or that's going to happen every year?
Right, we can put that on the next bill, and I work pretty closely with our tax collector who does the billing for this, and we can put a message out
Okay,
for that.
thank you.
All right, all those in favor of Resolution 917, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 917 has passed. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 918, authorization for submission of a Highlands Initial Assessment Grant application?
I move that we approve Resolution 9-18.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay.
This is matching funds.
And Corey, what, he left, so, oh, there you are. I didn't have my glasses.
The other
What's
Corey
this one
left,
for?
so-
I assume this is in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's why I didn't move.
Okay.
Okay, one of the questions we had earlier was regarding the, where we stood with the proposal that we had submitted to Highlands for help with funding with the master plan. The master plan process, everybody knows, is underway. One of the issues was trying to obtain enough funding, to pay for the master plan. And one of the options we had is to utilize Highlands funding, sources to help assist with that program. My understanding is the Highlands had approximately $110,000 set aside for Sparta Township for planning efforts in Highlands. We used approximately $20,000 went for the open space plan, and there's approximately $90,000 that they still have set aside for Sparta Township. Okay, I worked with Catherine on the township planner on a scope of work to submit to Highlands. Basically, kind of following her guide. If you recall, she had almost like a bar chart kind of schedule of the proposals for the master plan. I took the information that Catherine had prepared and put it in a scope of work, submitted to Highlands. Okay, this is back in July. They came back with some more information, is the fact that it led to the discussion about they would like to help funding our master plan. However, they want to make sure that that we review our master plan versus the Highlands Regional Master Plan. And they wanted a Highlands element to see if the planning activities are in line with the Highlands Regional master plan. A lot of times with the Highlands Regional Master Plan, it's not difficult at times. You're looking at the environmental, we're being environmental sensitive. You review their preservation and planning areas, and you discuss, what's being proposed in those areas, and are we being environmentally sensitive to, to what exists in that areas inside the Highlands region. After that discussion, I added some information into our proposal about adding a Highlands element to our master plan. And then we got a call about a request for a meeting, and we sat down and discussed in order to have the opportunity to get the funding from Highlands, they really want to ask Sparta Township to review, do the professional services to do an initial assessment application. Well, the assessment of the township. But basically, they're asking the town to do an initial assessment to determine if plan endorsement would be a good idea for Sparta Township. Okay.
How much does that cost?
Excuse me?
How much does that cost?
I believe it's going to be in a range of about $15,000 to $20,000.
So at the end of this thing, after you're done with it, after you're done with all this rigmarole to get the money, you're looking at $60,000 or $70,000 you're going to get?
Subtracting out of 90? Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yes.
So you start off with 120 or 110, then you're down to 90
90.
because of the open space plan that they're reviewing. That actually, I have concerns about that. We could talk about that later. Then on top of that, now they're saying, well, and then if you want this money, then you have to do this thing, which is going to cost another X amount. So by the time you're done with this thing, and you go through all this, and now you've gone in line, you've gotten your Highlands check, now you're looking at maybe getting $65,000, correct?
That part's correct.
Or
Yeah,
70 to 75. Right.
Well, yeah. Maybe I'm not good at math either.
But this is again, to study the
75,000.
feasibility of joining the Highlands Regional Master Plan. So a township independent of Highlands could consider doing that and would undergo expenses to do so, right? Okay. And what this does is it allows us to undergo that analysis, but then get funding for that analysis, as opposed to a township that says, hey, I'm interested in doing the regional master plan for Highlands, and then incurs a bunch of expense for which they have no grant money.
Yeah,
But the
that's
grant
correct.
money, but
The
but
grant
it-
money is
Let me continue.
specifically tailored to the analysis that you're doing, but there's no condition that you join the Highlands Regional Master Plan as a condition of the funding, right?
Well, let me back up a second. Okay. Back to Councilwoman Quinn's comments about, yes, you're right. The money would come out of that $90,000. Okay. Typically, I think they would have grant out opportunities that would, they might, do that on top of the 90,000. But I think this year they have to their funding where they are right now, basically been told to come out of the $90,000. But that does not mean that they won't give you additional funding on top of that. And
as long as you keep playing by their rules and align yourself with their plan. And none of that has to do with the original objective, which was simply to put a committee together underneath the planning board to just simply relook at the master plan for Sparta. So my concern is, does the money justify the additional work? And what does all the additional work do to the schedule?
Can I make a correction now? This does not obligate us. This is $70,000 to $75,000 for the master plan, and then 15 to 20 to go towards analyzing, assessing what the benefits are and what the requirements might be if the township later on should decide for the planning area to opt into being conforming. So it's not committing us to anything. So we
But
still.
he's saying you have to do this plan in order to get
No,
this money.
This is just, we're saying that, yes, we agree, we're gonna, as part of the master plan work, we're gonna also assess A, requirements, B, benefits.
And how much is that gonna cost? That's what I was
Well,
asking.
like Corey said, it's probably
$20,000.
about 15 to 20 of that 90.
But that's where I'm trying to get, let me finish. That you're both correct at the fact that the 15 to 20, that's a preliminary assessment. They want us to do that as part of the, the work that we're doing at the master plan. When it's said that, they didn't state that they have nothing that they have stated to me that you're not going to get additional fundings if you say no Okay, but there's nothing that says that they will not. Okay, so all I have is right now is the commitment to, do the $90,000. The preliminary assessment costs will be, taken off of that, and whatever's left, it'll be the master plan. So if your master plan is $130,000 or whatever number that was being floated around, I think it's $35,000, you may qualify 65,000, but there's no guarantee you're gonna get the other $65,000. That, there is no guarantee.
And that window opens up again next, second or third quarter next year?
I believe it's around, I think their fiscal year, the state fiscal year is July 1st, I think. I think it's when they'll open up next summer to reapply.
I'm a little confused, and on the August 27th meeting, Resolution 9-9, we applied for a grant for the master plan from the Highlands Council, and I believe that was in the neighborhood of $150,000. How does this action relate to what we took on August 27th?
But what was the action specifically?
We passed a Resolution 9-9 approving the submission of a grant application and the execution of a grant agreement with the New Jersey Highlands Council for the master plan.
Okay.
I
don't
think that
recall.
that was probably, Dan, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think, was that not the money that we got for the open space?
Doesn't say that.
The
report?
open space was 20,000. I don't remember doing the resolution for that, but I do know that.
I'm looking at it.
Maybe it just never got submitted?
That was I think that resolution was for the initial grant application.
Okay. There wasn't a grant application. We submitted a proposal, for grant funding. Okay, maybe that was the support of the grant funding at that time. The $150,000 I did apply, that not terrible. It's probably correct with the numbers, because I did have at one point having additional funding in it for engineering and attorney fees, so that's probably where the 150 came from. But that is the application, the proposal that was submitted to Highlands. I've been going back and forth with Highlands since that date on different revisions. They asked for us to do a Highlands element. I added information to the proposal, for that, and now they've come back and they asked us for this preliminary assessment. They basically, I think the discussion was that if they're going to be providing that kind of funding, they'd like the township to consider, do the preliminary assessment, see if there's anything that it would benefit or it'd be a detriment to the township if they went through that process.
So this is one and the same process, is what I understand, because again, the title and from August 27th is Resolution Approving the Submission of a Grant Application and Execution of a Grant Agreement with the New Jersey Highlands Council. It sounds like this is one and the same
It is.
thing, right?
Yeah,
And they just came back with some more questions and we have to re-affect it or something.
It's the same grant and everything. It's just they've been coming back to us and putting more criteria on the grant itself. And they wanted more, Corey, I remember reading, they wanted Corey's scope to be a little broader and to include this, but it is all the same grant. And now they want assurances that we would consider of the regional aspect of this voluntary conformance, just as it says in this. But it is all the same grant.
Okay.
But that request did not come back until the last month, for this assessment.
The funds it started at 150 and it's dwindled down now because of availability, from what I understand from
I thought
them.
it was 165 at one point.
Yeah, I think it was 100.
Then, I mean, it was a lot. I'm just, the only reason I bring this up, and it's fine, I mean, I'm not saying I don't support the master plan, because I've said a million times I do. I don't like playing games with the state. I don't like playing games with the state agency. I don't like getting involved with hooks and carrots and all that kind of crap. And every single time we get involved with this, there's a hook or a hidden thing or you got to give us that or in order to get this. And I'm just wondering, it's been since August. What has it cost us on top of everything else to keep going back and forth with them and everything? Just fund the master plan and then stop going back and forth with them and stop being entitled to all these state agencies and the agencies that represent the state that really want to take control. And you know what I mean? I think we really need to be mindful of this. Seriously, what is this thing costing us that at the end of the day, we're going to get $70,000 for a lot of aggravation and have to promise now to go do even more work and, line up with their plan. If we look at the scope, again, I'm just saying, sometimes what you get is not worth what it costs you. So what I'm saying is if we go back to the original scope of the master plan, none of this stuff was in it. None of this stuff was in it.
It didn't, the scope that was, the township planner had in did not have the elements for the Highlands, the Highlands element, the
Right.
review of it, in accordance with the Highlands Regional Master Plan. I think the master plan comes with elements, but they would look at the environmental, the aspects of it, that's naturally inside your master plan. But it did not have these requirements that Highlands is now putting on. I don't disagree that we've been adding, they have added items, as a contingent on getting the funding.
I'd like to share two comments. One is, we're not required to opt in regardless of what happens here. We're just assessing, which is information that's good to have. Even if we did opt in, you could always opt out, right? I mean, there's a township, you can eventually opt out. You're not required to stay into the planning area, I believe, right?
I think Highlands have stated that. I don't know what mechanism or how hard that will be once you get in.
Yeah.
I think, I've always thought I like the idea of the township controlling their own, planning and zoning with land use and zoning. I have not, I've only had one of my towns that has opted in. It had a very small, area. So
That was for the
it's-
planning area?
yeah, it had a very small planning area.
Okay.
But so it's not like Sparta.
Okay.
Sparta,
But either
you're-
way, this is not a block, this is not locking us in to join by doing this. This is just saying we're going to assess the benefits and the requirements, right?
I think this assessment would be
Yeah,
very,
and then
very
to
important.
fund the cost of that assessment. So I think it's important to remember Sparta is in the Highlands, and I think a reasonably prudent town that lives in the Highlands should at least consider, right, whether to join the regional master plan or not. So a town would go through the analysis to consider it. What this is doing is saying, for the costs that are incurred for purposes of that analysis, we are getting grant funding. Now, a town could say, I want to be considered joining the regional master plan of Highlands, but I don't want to deal with the Highlands at all. We'll fund it ourselves, right? They could do that, right? They could say, I want to look into whether it makes feasibility to join the regional master plan of Highlands, but because I don't want to have to deal with the Highlands itself, I will incur those expenses and will not receive any grant money. That's something that we could have done. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's nothing that says you have to take grant money. I think in
Yeah.
the past, Sparta has been very resistant to taking the grant money because of the possibly the fears of whatever may come with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and what is coming with this is what the Highlands is asking you to simply do is, hey, if you're going to take our money, at least look into joining us. You don't have to join, but at least look into it, and we'll cover the cost of you looking into it. That's my understanding of what this resolution is doing.
So-
Am I wrong about that?
No, when it becomes a preliminary assessment, that is the idea. You're supposed to, they want you to look through to do the preliminary assessment to determine if go in the plan endorsement process and opting in your planning areas is a viable option. That's they're asking you to do.
So the other thing that they were asking us to do too was do this open space recreation report. And my understanding of that was not that that money was coming out of this money. My understanding was that money was separate than this money. So I didn't understand that 20 was coming out of this money. But I just want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that when you get involved with the state, with these plans, next thing you know, I'm reading through the report and I'm calling Jim on the phone saying, hey, they want us to give all this to the state. There's something in it for the state. I've warned about this for years and years. You have to be careful when you get in and start taking money and everything sounds great until it's not. There are always hooks. There's always a trap. And you know what? I'm very mindful of that. And I hear all of this and I think, you know what? It's like, okay, now you're in it with the open space. Now you're in it with the recreation. Now you're going to be in it with your master plan. Now we got you into the Highlands. Where does it end? And again, let's stick to the objective of the master plan. Let's get that done before that ends up taking double the time it did. And next thing you know, we get a grant for 75, but it costs us $200,000 because it's now 2 years later or a year and a half longer because now we have to adhere to all the stuff that the state wants us to do. That's what I'm worried about. I would rather see us pull it out, fund whatever it is we're going to fund and get it done in one swoop rather than keep going back and forth with the state on these things. And just keep control of our own land and our own zones and our own place. And if we decide after the master plan we want to get into the Highlands, fabulous. But it shouldn't be a condition, I don't think.
Well, again, I think it's been stated over and over and over again. There's no requirement that we join the Highlands Regional Master Plan by accepting this grant. This simply allows us to get funding for the analysis of whether to do so. And if we didn't do that, we could go ahead and do the assessment, but we wouldn't get it, it would be coming out of our pocketbook. Instead, it's coming out of the Highlands Council's pocketbook. And to me, if we can get funding from the Highlands Council to look at the feasibility, it seems completely prudent to do so, particularly when there's not a requirement that you actually have to join the regional master plan. So that, I mean, I think we've belabored it, but I just want to be clear that there's, just so we are not saying that a condition of this funding is we have to join. We're simply paying for getting funding so we can cover the expenses that are incurred to do the analysis. And that to me makes complete sense. Regardless of the hoops they make you jump through, they're still paying for the analysis that you're doing that you'd probably have to do anyway, given the fact that you live in the Highlands and you're redoing your master plan. I think it's reasonably foreseeable and prudent for a town that lives in the Highlands to maybe take a look at whether joining the Highlands makes sense or not. And this simply allows a funding source for that.
Okay. We can agree to disagree. They should pay for
We-
it.
we need to move
It's their
on.
program. We should have moved on a long time ago. I'm just saying, be careful. That's all I'm saying.
Noted. All those in favor of Resolution 918, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution, do we have any noes?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, so we have,
I'd rather just see it funded than get involved with the state.
okay. So Resolution 918 has passed with 3 ayes and 1 abstention. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 919, Annual Report of Audit?
I move that we approve Resolution 9-19.
May I have a second, please?
I will second it.
All right. And this annual report is something we have to do every year, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, got you. So there wasn't an extenuating circumstance that led us to have to do an audit. We do it every year, and we have to do an annual report. That's simply, okay.
Actually, part of our best practices.
Yeah, this is the annual report of the audit for the year 2023. Yeah. Sure.
Let's see a typo.
All those in, does any council person have a question about Resolution 919?
No questions.
Okay. All those in favor of Resolution 919, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 919 has passed. We are now up to 920. Resolution 920, resolution authorizing acceptance of the 2023 corrective action plan. So I need a motion to approve Resolution 920.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 920.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Okay. So this corrective action plan for 2023 is a result of the annual audit that we just approved, right?
Correct.
Okay. I think my question has to do with, did we take a look at the audit for 2022? And one, did we do that? Two, was there a corrective action plan for 2022? And have we looked at the corrective active measures for 2022 and compared them with the corrective active measure 2023 to say, we keep having the same corrective active measures year after year after year. I want to make sure that's not happening.
That is not happening, and in last year's, there is always a corrective action plan. The auditors always find something that you can improve on. In last year's, I don't have it in front of me, but they were not as extensive as these were.
Only a couple of them, if I remember right, like
Very
two of
small
them.
list. There's
You
only a
have them in
few.
your file. They're in your, in OneDrive. I don't think they've ever been this extensive since I've been.
No, there hasn't, but we've done some changes. We have
Right.
a new finance department, and I've been really having a lot of correspondence with our auditors. And this is reflective in those actions.
And have we analyzed or determined whether any of these recommendations are not feasible? Like we can't, they're great to have a recommendation, but the recommendation is only as good as if you can actually execute on it.
Well,
we-
as you
can you
see, the
foresee any-
responsive,
yeah.
each recommendation has a response, and my finance team had carefully, put those all together. They never came to me and said, Jim, this is not feasible, we can't do this. I believe they're all attainable, and the fact that we had such an extensive agenda already, and you see a lot of corrections that we're already making. One is I don't think you guys have ever seen so many transfers, because, this is how we're supposed to do it. And so there are some changes you're going to see, from this point moving forward. And as I also wanted you and the public to be aware that, part of 2024 is going to have similar recommendations because we haven't started to address them until this month. So just be aware of that.
Well, honestly, most of them say, action will be, I mean, I thought that this was a very good report. So I'm referring to right now A, which is a listing of each one
Yep.
of the findings, and then underneath it, so what's the problem, what's the analysis, what's the corrective action, and what's the implementation date? And if you go through every single thing here, every single thing says effective immediately, already implemented, blah, blah, blah. So I think in looking at what is shown here as well as what is on the audit report, that the team has done a great job in really looking at everything with close, with in a very close scope to identify exactly what it is, articulate what it is. They're not fluffy fixes that are like, you can't figure it out. They've charted down what is the corrective action that's going to be taken, and they've given you a timeline, and all of it, I mean, this was done last week, so all of it is effective immediately. One of them was implemented in September of 2024. One of them says ongoing review. Other than that, you have November for finding number 12. Every other one is effective immediately. So I don't think we could have asked for a better response time, to address. And again, you're dealing with all new members. We have members that were there for a long time that retired. And I think that, it's a growing year. But to me, I am very confident in the plan that you presented and the team presented to the level of scope that it is. I think it brought it really down into layman's terms. And it's obvious that you're taking action and addressing everything.
Thank you.
Sure.
Second that.
Any other comments with respect
welcome.
to 920? Okay. All those in favor of approving Resolution 920, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 920 has passed. We're now up to the final resolution, Resolution 920. No, it's not the final. There's a 922. Resolution 921, a resolution authorizing the transfer of calendar year 2024 budget appropriations. We have a motion to approve Resolution 921.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 9-21.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Yeah, I think we had some questions with, if you look at, and it refers to a Schedule B, and am I right that what Schedule B is attempting to show is showing the transfer from one account to another account, right?
Right, so this is an extension, the recommendation number 2, that all budget transfers shall be approved in compliance with NJSA that's for you guys to do that. So now we're doing the proper transfer by resolution. And what these transfers do is they're covering shortfalls in the budget account lines, all right? Believe it or not, this is, actually is done every year, and you would have seen this done every year. But the shortfalls here are extensive. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But these transfers are necessary to get us to the end of the year to be fiscally solvable here. So that's why these are being done, and it's being done with my finance team and input from our auditors to get us to the end of the year. That's what you're looking at, and you're seeing the froms and the twos.
Well, how do we trace it, is what I'm trying to figure out, is I can't read this in a way that says, on the from line, we'll just start with the first one. Account number 01-201-20-101254. That's where it's coming from. Now, where is that account going to? How do I find that?
Well, the box below it where it says 2 accounts, from accounts, then 2 accounts. So I don't know if they just correlate with each other.
It's not a
It's not a
one-for-one.
one-to-one.
It's like
Right,
add up all
right.
the top.
You
and-
add up all the top
Yeah,
and
that
then
895.
the numbers at the bottom.
Then goes to those in bulk.
You
So
can
they're-
take $2,000 out of one account and put 1,000 in a second and 1,000 in
Yeah.
a third.
So in other words, the ones on the top have, for back of better terms, excess right now.
Exactly.
And those combined equal 900K. And then the ones on the bottom, the next column down, next row down, that 900K is being distributed across all those accounts because they have a deficit right now to get us to end of the year. Okay.
I got it. But there is no legal requirement that you're aware of that where you're moving from one account to another, that there has to be some type of symmetry between what you're putting it into. So for example, the first account is purchasing, we had $6,000, I guess, extra, right? And now we're taking that $6,000 and putting it somewhere on the 2 line. But we have complete discretion to where to put that?
They do, and it comes down to timing, though, as you can
Okay.
usually only do this in the last month and a half of the year. This is more on the accounting controls, and I got to admit to you that I'm not the finance guy here. I lean on my professionals on this, but as I understand it, though, that these transfers, they happen commonly, but usually it's at the end of the year, and it is to cover shortfalls that were, unforeseen.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is not only are these shortfalls, but also in the audit, it detailed out the fact that some things, in the opinion of the auditor, were not in the correct line items. So what you're seeing, I believe, also are not just the shortfalls, but the corrections that the auditor recommended with, hey, that money really would be better in this pot. And also what you're looking at is you're not looking at a bank statement, you're looking at a summary sheet. So, if you were to, I'm sure, go ask Dawn tomorrow and say, hey, show me where this, a line-to-line transfer, like an actual worksheet rather than a summary page, she would be able to tell you where all of it goes. It's not just going in a lump sum in nowhere land. You're just looking at a summary sheet of it right now.
Right, so we have a surplus in some accounts and a paucity in other accounts, and it's toward the end of the year, and we need to pay our bills under those accounts, so we're just making sure it's paid out of the appropriate account.
Okay, and then there's no requirement that there be sort of uniformity between where you're going from and to. You just take the money, find out where you still owe money, and put it in there. So the fact that, you have a deficit in, say, engineering, a surplus in the engineering of $216,000, you're like, hey, do I have an outstanding expense that's under 216 that I still need to fund? Yes, I do. The police need 209,000, and for police cars, I can take the money from engineering and theoretically apply it to the police car, and that would cover it. And that's sort of what we're doing here. Although you don't need to line up the from and the
Correct.
to. Got it. Okay.
Jim, can I ask,
It shouldn't be this intense.
I was going to
Okay.
say, next
You're
year
going
we
to see
shouldn't.
this next year,
Okay.
but it won't be as involved.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was going to ask too, in the 2 where the money's going to, there's a few that stand out, and I think Mr. Finkel asked a couple of these. there's finance for 100,000, there's recreation for 85, and there's 3 police-related ones for 482,000. So those are all pretty big ticket items. What are the drivers? So do we think that we under budgeted in these? So back in the spring when we budgeted, we missed something where we didn't, whatever. I mean, finance needed
That
another
is
100K?
essentially it,
Okay.
Councilman.
So now we have to be careful a few months from now when we're looking at the budget again, the new budget,
Well,
to be careful, right, of,
Well, the new budget, we will do
yeah.
we will do the proper accounting and all. This sheds light though of where
Mm.
the expenses are, where the hits are and stuff like that. And I think between the capitals and the grant monies, this is straightening it out.
Okay. And the last question that at the bottom, so I believe we have freedom to do this as long as they're in the same fund, right? So the whole big top section is our main budget, the current fund. In the middle, there's one item in the water that has to stay within water, I presume, and the same with the solid waste, has to stay within solid waste? Okay.
Because they're utilities.
Yep, okay.
Exactly.
All those in favor of Resolution 921, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 921 has passed. We do have a late addition, as if 21 resolutions wasn't enough. We have a 22nd, but I think when people hear it, they'll understand why we're doing it. So it's Resolution 922, a resolution supporting amendment of the Fair Housing Act, FHA, as proposed by the New Jersey Institute of Local Government Attorneys. So may I have a motion to approve Resolution 922?
I move that we approve Resolution 922.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
And Deputy Mayor Blumetti, I think you came upon this last week. Would you please kind of enlighten us why we're exploring passing this resolution?
Yeah, so this resolution, there's a group of government attorneys, the NJILGA, New Jersey Institute of Local Government Attorneys, who have been studying and are very close to the affordable housing legislation and the rules, the numbers. They have been putting together an amendment to the New Jersey Fair Housing Act. And what this resolution does, it's a resolution of support that they go through with that amendment. So this is being considered by many municipalities across the state. What it does is this looks at how the base number of affordable housing units was calculated. And what this will do, if the legislation approves this, it would reduce the total number to make it more appropriate, more representative of reasonably likely to occur housing. Just at a high level, what's used today and what they used for this is that they used something called a household change. So when they were looking for the base numbers for the last 10 years, they looked at household changes. And this is, in a sense, saying that it's more appropriate and more within the powers of towns to use a methodology based on housing units. So literally housing units, net housing units, or certificate of occupancies. So what this is looking to do is it's non-binding. This is saying that Sparta Township supports the effort and is asking that the New Jersey legislature consider this and enact an amendment to the Fair Housing Act that would then create a recalculation of the numbers to something that's more realistic and appropriate. And if and when this is enacted or approved, it then goes to our legislators, so our state senator and our state assembly people. And we hope that, that enough support comes from municipalities, that our state representatives will see this and be in support of legislation to adjust that base calculation for the numbers.
And I think there was some legislation also from our local and, state officials that supported changes to this, that thought this was outrageous. So just a little background in a nutshell, the housing numbers, we've been through this before in Sparta. This is our fifth iteration. This will be our fifth iteration of it. So I have been here for a few of them. But what ends up happening is the state says, okay, we're going to go to a book, we're going to go to a formula. And instead of going out and really taking everything into consideration, they say, okay, here's our formula. You have 35 square miles, 40 square miles, 8 square miles, however many square miles, put the formula in and out pops your obligation. So they did this last time, and one of the big problems, especially for places like Sparta, was we have a much different landscape than other parts of New Jersey, whether it's South Jersey or in the cities like Newark, Patterson, Lodi, places like that. But what happened was this sort of formula, if you will, was just kind of thrown at everybody. And if you didn't like it or you didn't think you could do it, then you had to pay the money and have your professionals go and negotiate with what at the time was COA. Now it's different. They've taken COA out. It's affordable housing. The issue is, and I think, Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, the purpose behind us putting this in this resolution was because this formulation of what is being recommended by this group of attorneys could reduce your requirement up to 75%. So it is extremely significant. So just think about it. If the state came in and gave us the same calculation as they gave Newark, and yet we have highlands, wetlands, restrictions, lakes, all this other kind of stuff, you could see how it's outrageous. So that's why we're passing this to really voice our displeasure with it. Future action will be coming, most likely, but this is our starting point, to be able to fight back and say, no, no, no. And what's really upsetting, again, is that when they came through, right before they gave out all these calculations, they specifically said, oh, we learned from last time. This time, we're going to take into consideration all of your wetlands and all of your blah, blah, blah. So, there'll be different formulations depending on what the vista and the landscape is, and they absolutely did not do that. So here we are again, but this is step one, and it's been updated to include information that is specific to us. So we wanted to give that to them to provide numbers, and I'm thinking that this is a great first step. It's a small timeline, a small window where you can fight back, and then they have a window to fight back, per usual. So I think this is a good start. So I move that we, I think it's just great, and I'm glad that we're doing it.
Yeah, I think it's an important step. And just to echo that and just to clarify this is a resolution of support. So this is not it's not litigation, and this is not
Right.
our response yet. Right, that's coming, as Councilwoman said.
Correct.
In terms of our number, exactly. This is for, support for this statewide movement to help amend the current.
However, we
FHA.
did get our number, and we do think it's outrageous,
Yes, we do.
just to clarify, in
Yeah.
case anybody was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is simply a resolution to support a change in the statute, right? Because as we all discovered, when you go in front of the DCA and people start yelling at them, why did you use this methodology? Why did you use it? They look at you and say, we didn't. The state legislator told us what to use. We don't have authority to change what the state legislature said we should use as a methodology. So we're, currently, the only way you get that change is persuade the legislature to change the standard of one of their components of the methodology. And I applaud the New Jersey Institute of Local Government Attorneys for identifying a standard that if they're right and they can get to agree would have a significant reduction in the fair housing requirement. But again, municipalities, even the DCA is at the mercy of whatever the legislature passes, and they're not, they're without authority to, change that. So the only way you do it is to persuade the legislator to go back to the drawing board and change one of these standards. So I think it makes complete sense to do this. So with that, all those in favor of Resolution 922, say aye.
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 Resolution 922 has passed. We are now, any other surprise resolutions we got tonight? All right, we got through all of 22? Okay. We are now at the council liaison updates, and I'll start to my far right and move to my left. So Councilman Chiarello.
Yes, just a second. Committee reports. The Environmental Commission our last meeting was on November 14th. At that meeting, we were treated with a presentation of the recycling programs offered at SCUMA. And we also reviewed 2 applications, but it was actually a very well-attended event for us. Our Business Development Committee meeting from November 13th was canceled. Our next meeting is on December 11th. We have Mayor Clark and I have a meeting with our Board of Ed as our liaisons to them on December 9th. We did have a meeting of the Sister City Committee on November 18th. We talked about some event planning, what the structure of the days might look like. At this point, our working model is still not final, but our working model is to have it over the Columbus Day weekend on October 2026. I will also point out that while at the League of Municipalities conference last week, I did attend an event about holding mass tourism events that are a seminar about mass tourism events, and I did raise a question to the panel and mentioned that we were planning this event, and I was very pleasantly surprised at the very warm reception it got from those in attendance, that everybody seemed to pique their interest. And I had no less than 4 people come up to me after the meeting and ask me how to get involved or how I can come. So this is it's an exciting event to be planning. And that's all I have for council liaison updates.
Thank you. So update on the planning board from the last 2 meetings. So first, there was a joint session on November 6th, right in this room. It was nice to see so many people on volunteers and elected officials together. It was planning board, town council, environmental commission, and also several employees and some of our professionals as well were there. And it was an overview, presentation, and discussion of the open space and recreation plan, which has been driven by the Environmental Commission, who's done a tremendous job with that, and it was created by the Land Conservancy of New Jersey. Second, the Planning Board also had a discussion on cannabis at the council's request. The council had drafted ordinances and requested that the Planning Board start looking into possible land use and zoning opportunities, particularly for retail businesses. And third, there was a special or an abridged meeting on the 20th to hear application 24722, which was approved, and it was for the Lake Mohawk Tennis Club regarding pickleball courts. The next planning board meeting is on December 4th, and there will be one following that on the 18th, and that would wrap up the rest of this year. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Council liaison updates we had our first meeting for the Trails Committee probably like 3 weeks ago. We had about 10 people showed up, and we're in the process now of getting the mapping that is necessary to figure out where the gaps are in the trails. I'm very lucky that we have. Glenn Dykstra is also in there, and he's done a ton of survey work with respect to these trails. And so we're getting, a lot of sort of professional level mapping done of where these gaps are. We're going to sit down and try to figure out what makes the most sense tackling these gaps in the trails going forward. But we have a very enthusiastic group, and I think we are meeting next Monday for our second meeting. With respect to the Sparta Film Ready, we are, again, we submitted our application. We're still in the queue. The Film Commission is having a somewhat of a delay processing the applications because they want to review the ordinances submitted by various townships to try to get some kind of consistency. And so meaning the State Commission, has asked a request for the Attorney General's office to kind of look at a template for an ordinance through which the commission can then judge other ordinances are coming in. The idea here is to get some consistency in New Jersey, because, what do we have, 562 municipalities. If we have 562 different film ordinances, a production company looking at that, trying to decipher it, will just go nuts. So, for example, in New York, all 5 boroughs follow the same ordinance. So if you're filming in the Bronx, you know what you have to do. It's the same as if you film in the Queens. And they're trying to have that because it will facilitate it better. But even despite that, right now they are projecting about $1 billion in revenue as a result of this, of entertainment production. There's 15 active movies being filmed right now in New Jersey. And I know the Bob Dylan biopic, which is going to be released in December, which they have, a few of the scenes were done over in Stillwater. That was wrapped up and that will be released. But there's a whole bunch going on. But we'll have a better idea by the end of the month when we will hopefully get approval. And then when we do intend to have an event for the public, for which members of the Film Commission will come and speak, and also there will be a release of a trailer, or what they call a sizzle reel, which is simply a video that you use to persuade entertainment companies to pick up your project. That was shot completely in Sparta. That will be part of that, and hopefully that will happen sometime in February. So that's the film committee. With Rev 250, we are in process of looking at what events that we want to do, and we have a whole list. And I thank Councilman Chiarello for his tenure there, and he got it very organized, and also a lot of different, a lot of it is trying to figure out all the great ideas that people have. We can't do all of them. We have to kind of figure out which ones we want, but there are going to be some very neat ones. For example, like what we call tavern talks, where you can go into a local restaurant and they have people from the Revolutionary era, kind of even dressed up like way, and you'll learn a lot about again Sparta's what revolutionary activity occurred in this area, a bunch of other things. So right now we're trying to cull that list down and try to figure out exactly what we want to do. But again, due to the efforts of Councilman Chiarello and others on that, we're pretty well ahead of a lot of other towns. I know I went to a presentation at the league, and a lot of people hadn't even heard of it. They hadn't done anything, and so we're pretty far along comparatively. So I applaud everyone who got involved in that. We did not have a rec committee meeting because we were all at the league. I think there's probably one going to come up in December, and maybe Councilwoman Quinn may have more to add. But that is all I have for my council liaison updates.
Before we move on, I have a question about the Film Ready Committee. I was looking and I could not find, and I might have missed it, it might be there, any resolution or ordinance that formally established the committee or its responsibilities and scope now that they've moved on from the film readiness ordinance. I think if we want to establish this with a committee with some specific responsibilities, like it seems like now that they're providing some kind of administration function of reviewing applications that come through, and you mentioned that there's going to be some standard they're going to review it against. I feel we need to have a resolution to establish their scope and responsibilities. Something to consider for next year.
Yeah, we have, good, I didn't add that yes, we've had organizational meetings where we've now come up with an organizational structure for the committee and whose certain responsibilities, what their roles will be, and also, obviously we're limited what we can do also by virtue of the ordinance that we passed. There's, some of our role with respect to the ordinance is, kind of very clear that we're advisory. A lot of that falls upon Jim and input by Chief McCarrick and others. But there will be, an organizational structure to it in addition to kind of what we want to do. And I know we've been, as a council, we would, we've been talking about having a sort of code of conduct and rules that all non-statutory boards that would have to apply. And so we figured that also, we've been waiting for that because I think that one would govern us, right? We're not going to seek a carve-out for the film committee with, rules that apply, that should apply to the business development. We'll also adhere to, the film ready. But I think that we've been talking about having a code of conduct, rules of the road, et cetera, for all our committees. And hopefully we can get to that. And then that will also form a framework for us.
I think we're talking about is a little bit different, that, that we should have passed a resolution maybe at the beginning of next year that says, here's the committee, here's the composition of the committee, here's the scope of what they do and the boundaries of their responsibilities, here's how often they meet, just like we have it for any of our other non-statutory committees, and just to tighten
We had
that up.
asked about that, Dan, actually. We had asked about that, and we're told that that was going to be what was going to basically be included in like the application, was more of like more of a structure and stuff like that, but I think it never happened that way.
I think it's
So you guys are going to have to go back and put something together so that it's
Just needs to be
documented
memorialized.
somewhere what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think you're either misinformed or remembering incorrectly. That wasn't the application. You don't need to put in what your organizational structure is. There are other requirements that are spelled out in the New Jersey Film Commission. But I mean, I think it's a good point that Councilman Chiarello raises, and that we will be working on a resolution that does set forth the topics that you're requesting.
But we were asking about things like who's going
saying
to
thanks.
decide what movies go in there, what's going to be like the structure like that. Like
It's that
action.
if you read the ordinance, that will answer your question. So I'd recommend reading it.
Don't be flip with me, Neil. Don't even start. I'm just saying, I think that Dan's bringing up a great point, and clearly, maybe the way it's written or whatever, maybe it's not clear. So maybe we do need to go back, like we do with every single other committee, and spell it out, and that's what Dan's recommending. So I think that that's a really good idea, and we should stay consistent.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe you missed it. I said I agreed with Dan with that. What I was trying to point out is that for purposes of the ordinance, you didn't need to do that, and for purposes of the application, you didn't. But it's a valid point, and we'll do it.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
What did you just say?
I said that's all I have. It's your turn, so you're up.
So the Municipal Alliance, great news, the Municipal Alliance is wrapping up for this year. Open items are all being closed out as we speak. We're super excited. Each of the schools is going to be given an option for speakers. We've been talking about this for a long time. A request went in to give the Sparta Food Pantry their second installment check for $3,000. If you remember, the Alliance was able to leverage monies that we got from the opioid settlement. And after lots of months of work, what we were able to do is come up with a 3-year commitment for each of those years, last year, this year, and next year. The Sparta Food Pantry would receive $3,000 out of those funds. So that request has gone in. I do want to thank everyone on the teams for all of their hard work. Lisa Lombardo from the county as well. She's always been a huge cheerleader of ours, and many times she has said that Sparta has the strongest alliance in the county. That all comes through really hard work. So thank you to everybody who's on that committee. The seniors had their last meeting of the year. During that conversation, the executive director from Knoll Heights was present, Francesca, and she was giving an update, and I thought there was some interesting information to share there. First and foremost, in her tenure of 9 years at Knoll Heights, the waitlist has been open for a collective 1 hour and 10 minutes. Every single time the waitlist opens, she said it's usually open for 10 minutes and then it closes. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I sent everyone on this council correspondence with regard to this update that she gave, with a lot of the statistics in there. Something else that's very important, we've been doing a lot of talking about low-income and affordable housing, and the requirements that are going to come in. And there are some really great ways to address that, to limit infrastructure in the towns and meet other needs that we have, one of which is senior housing. Knoll Heights, as you know, the township entered into a pilot agreement with them in their existing community. They cannot build out any further at that site because they have no more space. But this is a great opportunity, I think, for the township to reach out to Knoll Heights. We have a lot of space. We're going to have a need. They have a need. It's a great model. So I would recommend, again, I recommended this a couple months ago. I'm recommending it again. Please reach out to them because the seniors really need some help with housing. They're just, it's so limited. Another really great way, not to go too far off the track with the senior update, but another great way for us, thing for us to think about with housing is veterans housing. This is a big issue as well, and something that people don't take into consideration. But whether it is getting into an agreement with the veterans, whether it's tiny homes or housing or whatever it might be, this is also another demographic that is suffering dramatically throughout the county. And this is another great opportunity that I would really recommend everyone looking at, to be able to, when you're talking about the COA obligation and what it's going to be, think outside the box and look at some of these other communities that really are looking for help. So with that said, this is the last meeting that they're going to have for the year. Salute 07871. Again, the orders will stay open until February of 2025. All the work there will continue without delay. We'll continue to work with the town and put those banners up, and we're very excited about all the new ones that we will be putting up in 2025. The health department continues to do, Steve continues to be very busy with different reports, especially now going on in the winter months, where we're starting to now talk about RSV and other, some of the other illnesses. So again, the website has been updated. Please take a look out there. We did also have a council connect, Dan and I, and as we said before, some of the things, we want to thank everyone that came, first of all, to meet with us. And what issues came up? Well, streetscape. So Corey, we were talking about that for quite a while tonight. That came up. Traffic safety chief, that came up, and I saw Captain already had gotten back to the resident, which is fantastic. And the water testing. So I think the water testing, everybody in the room is here perfectly here for all the things that we were asked. And again, we do want to really thank all the residents for taking their time to come out and voice their concerns. Also, I think I had questions around the logistics. So you've all heard me ad nauseum be screaming about, all these great things that have absolutely no logistical systems behind them to help Sparta Township staff be able to handle. So things like food truck licenses and everything they need to be credentialed, dogs and cat licenses, things of that nature. Also, online systems and paperwork, and that we need to get the film-ready permits and the long-term rentals. A lot of people don't know, but every single home in Sparta that is rented, so as of January 1, 2025, no more short-term rentals, but every long-term rental also needs to be registered with the township. That is by ordinance. So I know we talked about in 2025 really imposing the fees if people are not registering, because we really need it for public safety and whatnot. But I cannot stress the importance of you guys looking at some kind of system to help the staff be able to manage all of this from an end to end, because it is extremely time consuming. It should all be done electronically. There are systems out there that do this. And before we start getting involved, like Neil was talking before about the amount of licenses for film ready and all this other kind of stuff, the staff's going to be bombarded. And it's really, there are tools out there to help them. So please, please, please look at that. That's all I have. Oh, no, I don't. I have one more thing for the Alliance. I was chosen to be one of the judges, along with some of the police officers as well. We had a good attendance there from Sparta PD for the What's Your Anti-Drug contest. And I will say, it was amazing. It was held at the Center for Prevention. And what the initiative was, is children in all the area's schools, dependent on their grade, either made poems or draw pictures or took photos of what is your anti-drug. And then winners were selected out of every single school district. And the amount of entries was staggering. And the quality of some of the stuff that these kids did was unbelievable. So I'm not going to steal anyone's thunder and talk about winners or any of that kind of good stuff. I just want to thank the Center for Prevention. This was also an initiative that we supported as well. They do great stuff for everybody that's struggling in these areas. So that is all I have for liaison updates.
And one thing, I can't remember if I brought it up at the last meeting, was that I did attend, along with Chief McCarrick, the opioid settlement fund. They have quarterly meetings. Chief McCarrick represented Sparta extremely well, identifying what, Sparta is doing with some of the funds, including considering getting naloxone dispensers. And I think it was, I know there was some other, like, town administrators that were looking at him and writing copious notes, because we were sort of leading the way there. So thank you, Chief McCarrick, for being there and putting Sparta in such a good light. Appreciate it. And now we're up to any unfinished or new business. And none from me.
I have some.
Okay.
So again, I want to warn everyone around the state agendas and the state requirements, and although the grants and all that stuff sound great, please, 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 moving forward, just be mindful, just be careful. The same thing with, when you get involved with like the Land Conservatory or the Highlands Coalition, they're great groups, but look at where they're funded from and just be mindful. Read the fine print before you get into, the grant monies and stuff like that, because as I said before, sometimes it can cost you, more than you're getting. So just be mindful of that, is my advice. Also, I've asked Jim to please send me some reports, so I will be sending out some recommendations or potential recommendations for ordinances at the next meeting. I'm just waiting to get those reports back. I mentioned in the beginning of this meeting that an employee of this township passed away last week. Her name was Julie. She worked here and had a lot of friends here. This was her family for a few years now, many years now, actually. She was an active employee at Sparta Township. And in the past, when an employee that is still working here passes, there's different things that are done as memoriams for them. There are trees, there are little gardens, there are things of that. And what I am asking is for the township to do the same for Julie. And that possibly, whether it is a tree planted in her name or a park bench that is put there in her name, I am asking that she be given the same respect that the other employees have been as well. I understand that she wasn't here for a little while, but that was because she obviously was not well, but she was still active. And she was a big part of the Sparta Township family. So I'll be following up with you on that. The other thing I want to talk about, we talk about threats and this and that, and I do want to encourage sooner rather than later for some kind of policy change or policy to be put in place to handle the dangers around 5G networks. There's a lot of studies that I've been reading lately, believe it or not, that really talk about how dangerous this is. And we're getting into situations now where, obviously, and we have for decades now, these cell carriers and different carriers and whatnot are putting poles all over the water, with the water tanks, which is fine, for what it was, I guess. But now more and more of these things are coming, and what's happening is they're starting to be on private properties sometimes, depending on the height and whenever they're getting into the different deals. I think it's very important that we put some kind of guidelines around where these things can go, where they can't go, where they shouldn't go. I don't think they belong near parks necessarily. I don't think they should be around where children are all the time, you know, or people are all the time. It's one thing to have it up on top of a mountain where it's miles away or thousands of feet or hundreds of feet or whatever it might be. But I think that we should be protecting the residents of Sparta by saying that we do not want these things, or they're not allowed in certain spaces where children or adults in the town are spending a lot of time outdoors without shelter around these things. And I'm not trying to sound like Chicken Little. I'm just trying to, you know, as technology continues to advance, I think it's very important that we stay aware of what's going on. I don't think these things should be, like I said, parks. I don't think they should be anywhere near there. I think we need to protect the children. I don't think they should be near schools. I don't think they should be anywhere where people are for a prolonged period of time. Even a place like Town Hall or the library, for that matter. I think we need to shield people from them because I just don't think there's enough out there right now to counterbalance the concerns. And I'm, again, not trying to be Chicken Little, but I feel like this is very important and something that I would recommend that you do here as a policy change to protect the people within our community when it comes to 5G. So with that said, that's everything I have.
Okay.
So I first just, I attended the league convention last week, and it was, again, very valuable, great sessions, a lot of education, met a lot of interesting people, and I think there's a lot that we gained from there we could bring back to the township to benefit it. Second item is, I believe that the council passed cannabis ordinances, introduced them in October, and then sent them to the planning board for consideration, master plan consistency review. They were deficient in terms of they didn't have the detailed zones in there, which I think we knew. We wanted to just get the planning board's initial feedback. But they're unable, of course, to do a consistency review. I think, you know, we kind of discussed this, that now it might be most appropriate to rescind or withdraw those introduced ordinances now, just to clean the
Certainly
slate.
formally can do that, or at the end of the year, they're simply going to die from not being acted upon.
Okay. I mean, the planning board knows that they can't act on them. I know there's a requirement they respond in 35 days. Recommendation, though, Mr. Ryan, would it be just cleaner to rescind them or withdraw them, or does it matter really?
I really don't see a difference, 6 one, half a dozen the other, so I think it'd be the pleasure of the council how you want to
You want a
proceed.
motion to rescind?
That would be.
It'd be a motion to withdraw the introduced ordinances.
Neil, what's your
So I
perspective?
can make a motion to
without putting it on
withdraw
the-
them if you want.
This is an ordinance.
Yeah,
Well, it'd be
Your take.
a ministerial action. It would-
yeah, it doesn't seem necessary to me. It's going to die regardless, and,
Die.
you know, and there's not going to be any obligation upon the planning board to act on an
No, the
ordinance.
council is going to have to reintroduce.
We have to reintroduce it, so
the
it's-
ordinances in 2025.
It seems like a belt and suspenders approach that probably just isn't necessary.
But we should do something final, should we not? So the planning board knows that they no longer have to take any action on it? Rather than just let it linger out
Well, I think
there?
that, well, that's up to the liaison. I mean, do they need anything further from the council?
No, I mean, we've heard from our professionals that there's the understanding that they are deficient and they can't act on them.
They send a note that says these are deficient and I can't act on these.
I certainly can confirm it with the planning board attorney.
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
We'll be taking no further
Yeah, I think
action
it's
in
clear.
2024.
Yeah, I think it's clear. If there's no preference either way, then that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to make sure that got out there in case we had to do something. That's all I have.
I have a couple of things. We have a meeting scheduled with our state assembly and state representatives on December 5th, I believe, next week. I'm not able to attend that meeting. I do have prior work obligations, just to let you know. After having previously, earlier in the month, attended a preparation for being a teacher for a day, the actual event is December 3rd, so I look forward to, I believe, their 5th grade. And I believe it's language arts in the morning and phys ed in the afternoon. So I've always, actually, when I was in college, I was determined to be a teacher, and I just never did it. So it's something I'm looking forward to because I think teaching is cool. I want to say that I enjoyed the Veterans Day ceremony on Monday the 11th, a couple weeks ago. So it's always a moving event. Councilwoman Quinn already mentioned that she and I participated in the Council Connect program at the library on November 15th. Along with others, I did attend the League of Municipalities Convention, November 19th, 21st. I attended 6 different seminars, one on food waste, and this is something I've been exploring for a while, and it really became clear to me that this state just lacks the infrastructure to really support this, and haven't exhausted all my avenues yet, but it's a hard problem to solve. Second one was building better streets to enhance mobility. And I feel that once the Trails Committee finishes their task, which is to create a trails plan, I think that group, or maybe the next incarnation of that, could eventually be one that becomes a safe mobility, better biking and pedestrian for streets. There's a committee in Highland Park that is dedicated to that, and I think this is a natural progression of that once their initial tasks are complete. The third was about preserving historic buildings. I did attend a seminar similar to that last year and met with the Historic Preservation Society office in New Jersey, and I believe that is something that we still should explore. And I think that's going to be part of the master plan review, where we might consider setting up an historic commission to make sure that we don't knock down our historic buildings, because once you knock them down, you never get them back. I attended the annual risks management seminar, which gives us, our taxpayers, some relief, a credit toward our insurance premiums. I attended a FIFA World Cup 2026 preparation meeting, which is just to find out what the host committee is up to. And one of the things I encouraged, because there are only so many tickets to sell for the games in the Meadowlands and in Philadelphia, that and millions of people want to watch, that perhaps every neighborhoods can host like a watch party. So I think I'd like to explore that in Sparta. It'd be great to get all Sparta people together and watch the U.S. or whoever we want to see play together. I've been to those before. It's a lot of fun to do it in person. And last one, as I mentioned earlier, was handling large-scale tourism events. The seminar took us through some of the do's and don'ts and what to look out for those. So that was an interesting seminar as well. Last year, Councilwoman Quinn and I participated in a holiday decorating decorating contest, where there was some talk about broadening it. Just putting that out there. See if
So it
there's,
was at the police department.
last year was the police
and it
department.
was phenomenal.
It was a
And
great
we
success.
were talking about if you were going to extend it to.
Just floating the idea. I'll leave it at that.
We're already on it, so.
I'm sure you are. I think you started, it was amazing. It was so impressive.
Good for them. Everybody has fun.
We had a good time.
Yeah.
I need judges though. So
What?
I need some judges, so we'll be reaching out.
Sign us up.
I'm in.
And finally, I'd like to make 2 motions. First, I'd make a motion to put on the agenda for the December 10th meeting that we fly the flag of the United States National Guard on December 13th to honor the anniversary of the founding of the U.S. National Guard. So that is my motion that I'm making.
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we have 3 ayes and 1 abstention for flying the flag of the National Guard.
Thank you. And secondly, I'd like to make a motion to put on the agenda for the December 10th meeting that we fly the flag of the United States Space Force on December 20th to honor the anniversary of the founding of the U.S. Space Force.
I will second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We will fly the flag of the Space Force.
Roxanne,
And one
just-
abstention.
Did you note that I abstained?
Yeah, and
from
one
it?
abstention for that.
Yeah, I think
Any
that
other-
takes through all of our branches of the military that we
Okay.
tried to honor this year. That's all I have. Thank you.
I think we have reached the end. May I have a motion to
Nope.
adjourn?
No, no, this isn't public.
Oh, sorry. I always skip that one because it's usually like midnight. Sorry, we have a final public comment period for what I call the grab bag, so anything that you don't see on the agenda or a resolution, you can come to the microphone.
I have two quick questions. One is, I've heard the opioid settlement fund mentioned a couple times over the last few months. How much did Sparta get, and where's the money going besides the food pantry?
Yeah, sure.
Is that public information on the website, or has that already been shared?
Yeah. The money comes, Chief, I think you're going to probably answer all
Why
this,
don't you
but
get
the
your other
money
question out
comes
first?
in drips and, the money comes in drips and drabs. He'll give you the exact amount so far, but it goes all over the place. The food pantry is a very small benefactor of where the money actually goes. Chief, I think you had it all
And
written
did you
out
have another question, just so
recently.
we don't gobble up your 5-minute time, besides the opioid
Yeah,
recovery?
the other question is, you mentioned the COA, or the affordable housing. And there's some efforts to maybe dispute what Sparta's been assigned. What has Sparta been assigned?
427
Obligation, right?
units.
How many?
427.
But it's important to
That's the
understand.
preliminary number
Yeah.
coming out of the DCA.
No, I understand.
So-
I've heard a number out there, and I heard it's not too good
Yes,
for
that's a
Sparta, and we're
very-
gonna fight it, but I never heard what the number was, so.
Right,
reason why
very
that-
preliminary.
And just for anyone interjects, do you have any other questions? I don't want to, again, gobble up.
Not a question, but a comment.
Sure.
As some of you know, I was on the school board for 7 years, and when I'm familiar with the transfers from and to and the process, and it's not totally uncommon. But I want to make sure that these are shortfalls and not sort of a grab bag, that we have this extra money at the end of the year, and let's give some to the rec department, 85 grand. Let's go buy 3 new cars. Let's do this other stuff that maybe wasn't budgeted, maybe not even needed, but the thought is the money's there, let's use it. And I don't think that's the right way to use taxpayer funds. So I'm not saying it's being done that way, but I've seen it done that way in public situations, and it's not a good thing. So,
It's a valid concern, and I agree with you.
good.
All right, Chief, opioid recovery settlement fund.
Okay, so I was going to report on this a few meetings ago, but there was a larger presentation, so I kind of deferred to that. So opioid settlement funds are, it's a settlement from the state of New Jersey from litigation for addiction. And so our township opted in to this suit, and we received funds. So there is a projected amount. It's on the state website. There is a website, or the state website, and a drop down for the opioid settlement funds and how much we're projected to get and how much we got thus far. I don't have the exact number in front of me on how much, but it's over $100,000. They're saying it should be coming in through 2038. We don't have any real schedule of when it comes in. Sometimes we'll just receive checks. And that's really it. So we really didn't have much information the first year, and then the state put out some guidelines on,
Just to clarity, it's a total of 100, plus or minus 100,000?
it's over
or-
100,000 that we've gotten that
Okay.
far. And I want to say maybe we spent around 18,000. I'm coming up with a little bit of more of a strategic plan for the future, but some of the things that we spent it on already are some community engagement events such as Sparta Day, Sussex County Day, police youth programs, our Junior Police Academy Lead Day, Municipal Alliance programs. So we have a lot of different speakers, as Councilwoman Quinn had mentioned, that have gone to schools, different programs from the Center for Prevention and Counseling. Also, as she mentioned, the Sparta Food Pantry, and also training for some of our officers, de-escalation, first aid, CPR, AED, the Narcan deployment, crisis intervention. These funds could also be used in conjunction with mental health. A lot of times with addiction, in the opioid world, we see mental health issues with that too. So there's different, categories that we look at when it comes for spending: prevention, harm reduction, treatment, and recovery. And there's a lot of different things that I'm looking at. Prevention, mostly community outreach programs, municipal alliance support, like I mentioned, harm reduction. So some of the things that we would purchase is Narcan. And the state had passed a Senate Bill 349, which has first responders, when they respond to somebody that may have suffered from an addiction, overdose, whether they go to the hospital or not, we can relieve them or the family, we have to, with Narcan. Also, we're purchasing fentanyl test strips, so to give out to the public, and we do that at our community engagement events. Our community engagement events, as I mentioned before, we bring in the Center for Prevention and Counseling. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but they are a hub for our county when it comes to all areas of addiction and recovery.
I don't want to be rude or interrupt. I was wondering, based on this fund, it doesn't go to the families affected by it?
It goes back into the community.
Community.
On the way that it should be used as far as these categories, which I'm explaining to you.
All right, so this settlement itself is not geared to the families that lost loved ones based on...
Not
to
directly.
interject, I do have some familiarity with that. That's sort of my area of practice. So we weren't in the opioid case, but there's a separate class action dealing. This is class action that is focused on municipalities that had increased costs and expenses related to treating the epidemic. And so the settlement is related to, efforts that municipalities can make, because they had to expend so much money treating the epidemic. There is a separate one, a separate class action that will go to the victims, if you lost a loved one or something. So that's separate, so that, that would be mixing funds if they were to take the opioid settlement fund from municipalities and then give it to. But I know in speaking to Chief McCarrick, I know a concern that he has and I have is making sure that, we do help the people who are in recovery right now. And with the Center for Disease and Prevention, and they're very good on that. I heard them speak, and they're, really treating our recovery community is important. And so the extent that we can help that out, I know we're focused on that.
Thank you.
So I could give you a couple other things that we're doing.
No, I just wanted to understand the allocation of money. I know personally families that have been affected by it, so I just didn't know.
If I have a few minutes, I'd like to explain it.
Yeah,
Just
please
since,
do.
I started this already.
Yep.
Some of the other things with harm reduction I'm looking into, like the mayor said before, is purchasing a vending machine that supplies harm reduction items such as Narcan test strips, and things of that nature. We also, I'm sure you've seen our Operation Take Back with used medication. All that comes into Sparta at the police department. We store it, package it, and then we work with the DEA twice a year. They take it back, and we
I
get
noticed that got moved from outside, the mailbox outside to inside the lobby, right?
always been inside the library, never
Always,
outside.
okay.
Yeah. We do get a lot of medication in this town. When Sparta shows up, we show up with a lot, truckloads. So some of those other things. As far as treatment, in that category, again, we work with the Center for Prevention and Counseling on it's called Operation Operation Help Hands. So we'll go door to door with people that we know that may be addicted or just suffered an overdose, or maybe were just arrested with narcotics, alcohol, anything like that, and try to help them get into treatment. We also, we've been a part of CLEAR, which is Community Law Enforcement Addiction and Recovery, where somebody could show up 24/7 in our lobby and say, hey, I need help. I want to go to detox or whatever I need to do. we have that partnership with Clear to point them in the right direction and get them the help that they could get. There's a lot of different guidelines that go with that, but, we work them through that. And then, obviously, there's more areas that I want to investigate. With recovery, what I would like to do is, meet with some of our local AA and NA organizations and see what we could do to help them, what funds they may need. And we always support the annual recovery addiction walks, which takes place in Franklin. It's a very big 5K that everybody comes out for. We always help with that out. And so those are just some of the things that we're doing. I know that there is a survey out right now with the master plan and everything. I want to create a survey and put it out to see how the residents of Sparta think that or would see the needs of this money to be used. I just don't want it to interfere with the survey that's out right now. But if you want to talk more about it, or anybody from the public, please don't hesitate to talk to me. The reporting is done annually through the state, which is on the state website.
Great.
All right?
Thanks for going through that.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Chief,
Thank
can I add to what you just said?
Sure.
So I think the other thing that the Alliance did this past year with the addition of the opioid settlement funds was expand out also into a big piece of all of this is prevention. And, like it has to be a balanced approach across all the demographics in the community, all ages, everyone. And a big piece of this is, again, let's not get into that situation. So when we talk about physical and mental health and well-being, one of the things the Alliance decided this year was to add this component called Live Your Best Life. And this was all about being able to get involved and support some of the programming to help people have an alternative to doing things. So giving people alternatives to staying engaged and being associated with something. If you're not a kid that loves playing contact sports, for example, let's provide something else, another different kind of program. For the senior citizens, it's alarming, but without even realizing it, we're really seeing a lot of issues with seniors now, not because they're going out and, doing what they think is bad. It's just the medications that they're taking are so strong. And in some cases, there might be a senior that's had a Scotch and Coke every single night for 40 years, but all of a sudden they get a new medication and that Scotch and Coke with that medication now puts them in a situation where they're at risk for, DUI or DWI or whatever. So anyway, this Live Your Best Life thing also allowed us to be able to reach out into a different way with a positive message in addition to all of the other support and help to really not go with the same message all the time. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But hey, here's an idea. Let's do this, or let's do this new thing. That's all. I think it's just an interesting new dynamic and component. And also something else that's new this year is the screenagers. So a lot of mental health problems and addiction problems that they're seeing now in children and some adults is stemming from misuse of social media and phones and all that kind of stuff. So we looked into that, and actually Sparta school systems are going to be starting to implement the screenagers program starting next year. So I think if we can address things there as well. Thank you, Chief.
Well,
Any other public comment?
Jenny Derrick, step into Sparta. Sorry, I keep doing that. I have a couple of quick questions. Is Chapter 39 in play in all of North Village, or is this just, we're adding one road? Is it in
talking
any?
about Title 39?
I'm sorry, Title 39.
Yes, it is.
So it's all of North Village, so this was just one different type of coverage that they're getting, this alternate side of the road?
Chief, it's, North Village has some public roads and has some private roads.
Okay,
Right, it's got different sections to it. This section where Cypress, Keystone, Market Street are all in that private there, right behind, did Chelsea there.
okay.
And the one road, Market Street, was having parking issues. So the HOA reached out to us to aid in enforcement on no parking. And then they went through the process and the procedure of filing the
But Title 39.
Title
We
39.
enforce Title 39. It's just like Lake Mohawk. They went through the procedure years and years ago,
So-
so we could go in and enforce Title 39.
So, but it's not just on that one road, or is it just on that road? Like, if someone blows a stop sign, are you able to stop,
Yes.
write them a ticket? Okay,
Yes.
that's what I'm, question. So in March, the township passed a resolution about the water bill, or maybe it was an ordinance. Forgive me, it's late. I don't need to tell you that. In March, the ordinance was to increase the solid waste bills by $25 a quarter. And it said that that was, the ordinance established the rate for 5 years. But now you're changing it, and now it's going to go up $40 a quarter, right? It was going up to
Correct.
$100 a quarter, now it's going up more. And so if we knew what the contract was, when you signed it back in March and had that ordinance that established the rate, set it in stone for 5 years, that was the quote, then why are we changing it now? What changed? Did the contract change?
Contract did not change, but the budget did. It was underfunded.
So the contract, the numbers in the contract, though, were what they were,
It's a utility.
right?
The trash and curbside pickup is a standalone utility. It needs to sustain itself.
Right?
In order to run the utility, you need more than just a contract for outside service.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
That's in.
So it's above whatever you're paying to Blue Diamond.
Correct.
Which brings me to kind of an overall question. With all of the items that were on the agenda tonight that have to deal with rejiggering, for lack of a better word, fixing mistakes, looking at issues that have come up or just been detected or are now being addressed, do we have confidence in our finance department? Are we going to be looking at, you did mention that we're probably going to be looking at some of this stuff again next year because it's November and we're just now getting to incorporate some of these, some of the items that were brought up in the previous audit. So are we worried about it? Are we worried about our financial standings? Are we, we're spending a lot of money in PFAS and DCA and it's all warranted. I'm not saying it's not warranted, but tonight's agenda was worrisome with all of the changes and all of the seeming issues that are just being addressed now at the end of the year. Are we worried about this? Are we going to be okay with our budget for next year? Our water bills are going up, and I get it. I understand that these things happen, but it seems like there's a lot of issues that are being addressed or having to be addressed.
There is a lot of correction being done, Jenny. I won't deny that. But I'm confident that the corrections we're making are correct, and they will put us on the right track moving forward. And I think we tried to be as transparent as possible with
appreciate
the
it, yeah.
cause and effect on these. Those corrections started as early as September. And from this point forward, I have high confidence that we're doing the right thing for the township, and it will, bode well moving forward. Those utilities need attention, and full disclosure, that sewer utility, as you'll read about in the rate study, that'll need to be addressed, and the council's aware of that, and first thing next year, we'll be addressing it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we have full hope and expectation that the finance department will be in better stead this year, and that's obviously something that the council's concerned about. And I know that, there's no risk to jeopardizing bond ratings or other things. That was sort of questions that I had asked when I saw a lot of the changes, but we're still financially fine. It's just, some of the allocation of the budget and what accounts they went to needed some correction. So, and I applaud Mr. Zepp for being on top of it and trying to correct where we can.
Just to build on that, I want to reaffirm that, a couple of months ago, Standard & Poor's reaffirmed our AA+ credit rating, said our credit was excellent, and said our cash reserves are exactly where they should be. And I believe in early 2025, all of our capital bonds, all of our debt will be paid off, the long-term debt. So we're in fine financial shape.
That's what I was looking for, thanks. And Chris, just one quick thing, the concern you have about the township being roped into things by virtue of funding from the state, I understand what you're saying. The open space was triggered, the requirement to join the open space was triggered by accepting that $500-something thousand grant for the
But
playground.
so I appreciate that, but that's not just it. So normally when you, first of all, before we even put in money, and I've talked to you about this, before we even put in for that grant, before we even put dime one or minute one into it, I had said over and over and over, hey, make sure that we don't owe them anything. Hey, make sure. But because it was an inclusive playground, I look, my job is to bring it up.
I'm not putting-
No,
I'm just-
but I want to be
Yeah,
transparent
yeah.
about this and I want to be clear, and I'm glad you brought it up. So I had been warning against this. I never saw the final contract. I kept saying, be careful, be careful, be careful. That's a lot of money. Let's make sure we're not, giving away. Nope, we're not giving anything away. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Everything's good. Next thing you know, you get this report. And not only does the report, shockingly, so yes, you have to do a Rossi, but that doesn't mean you give them every single park in your entire, okay? So the original Rossi that you have to do after doing this, which I found out about after that thing came in because I was told this was not going to be a problem after warning everyone about it forever. So yes, you do. If you take that money, I mean, when I first heard it, Jim will tell you, I called him, I said, give it back and tell them, thank you very much. We'll bond for it in a bigger bond down the road in a couple of years. This is exactly what I was afraid of because then you get these organizations that are funded, they get their money to be able to give you a grant because they're getting their money from the state. What makes me nervous there is it's what's best for the state, not the town. When they come back in and say, oh, well, you're going to take this money. So instead of doing the bare minimum and keeping control of your playgrounds and your parks, what we're saying you should do is just give them all your parks. Just give them everything. And I called him and almost had a nervous breakdown. And I will tell you right now, I served as mayor during COVID. I've said this before. I cannot underestimate the importance of us keeping control of our assets. We never closed our parks during COVID. Never. We closed the playgrounds because you had to by law. If you look, every state park was closed. Stokes, all of them. You could not even go in. We said, no way, people need to walk, they need to get out, they need to whatever. So we followed the stuff that had to be closed, no sports, the playground, whatever. But our fences and our gates to our parks were always open. If you give stuff away to the state, once you give it, you are never getting it back. And you will lose all control. Anytime you want to do a project, anytime, God forbid, a water line, I'm sure you guys, right? If a water thing breaks or you need to dig something up, forget it. It's no longer your DPW and your water people. Now you got to coordinate with the state because technically it's their property. And trust me on this, in my experience of doing this for 12 years, maybe that's not a lot to a lot of people, but I have picked up some things. And one of the things I am very mindful of always is watch out what the state's going to give you for free, because trust me, it's going to cost you more than it's going to save you.
Okay, with that,
Just like to add a clarifying comment on, in defense of the open space plan. I know, Councilwoman, I know where you're coming from, but the open space plan needed to be done. I mean, it's supposed to be done every 10 years. The last comprehensive one was 1997. So I don't think we just did that because we were asked to by the state or Green
Get
Acres
the
or
one I
whatever.
gave
but-
you from 2 years ago?
Yeah, but the open space plan? Yeah, that was just a list, of inventory of open
Right.
space. That wasn't a full comprehensive open space plan.
That's another thing too. We got grant money, but then our staff ended up putting in all kinds of work that costs even more. And while I appreciate it, I'm not saying I don't. I'm just saying when you get involved, what looks like, what's the saying? There's no such thing as a free lunch. I'm just saying, be careful.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I agree with that. We do have to be careful. And also, I think that the ROSI doesn't necessarily give the land to the state, right? It's on the inventory list now to be preserved, conserved. It's not like it's being owned by the state, right? Just a little clarification. I don't want people to go away with the wrong
It
impression.
is, actually, parts of it are. And once you take that money, it's on the state, like that stuff, that's state. So go to Verona Park, go to any of those other places, wherever you're taking the money from, they're the controlling factor. And in the Rossi, yes, you're knocking it down, but you're also ending up with those things being on registries all over the place and everything else. So I'm just warning you, look, it's just my opinion. Take it, leave it, whatever, it's fine. Just be mindful.
Yep, okay.
All right, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
May I have a second?
I will second.
Second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.